human nature is quite mysterious. For example, while Chima and I are good brothers, I did indeed shoot at him during the day, emptying nearly half a magazine. Gu Zhiyong's eyelids twitched. You said earlier that it was an accident, and now you're finally telling the truth. Half a magazine? You really are generous, aren't you? But it was precisely Qin Feng's words that made him alert. Gu Zhiyong realized he seemed to have confused something. In the confrontation exercise, he and Wu Jian were opponents first, and only after the competition ended did they become brothers. Moreover, Gu Zhiyong originally had a plan to send his good brother to the skies with 2 grenades at the last moment. So thinking about it this way, Qin Feng's suspicion was completely reasonable. There was indeed a 50% chance of being ambushed on the necessary route ahead, not to mention 50%. Even if it were just 1%, Gu Zhiyong couldn't gamble with the lives of the soldiers. So should we hurry up and leave? No. Qin Feng shook his finger. I just said, these are just my assumptions. I plan to quietly send 10 people to sneak over from the back and check the situation. If everything is fine, we will proceed. But what if there is a problem? Looking at Gu Zhiyong's intense gaze, Qin Feng broke into a bright and cheerful smile. Then we will take them down hard. Chapter 167. Stirring up discord. Attack the Heart First Class Leader. Where are they? Why haven't they arrived yet? Li Jiaxing, lying in the grass, felt a bit numb. He simply adjusted his position and turned to ask Zhou Shangfei, who was beside him. Zhou Shangfei frowned, also feeling puzzled, but still patiently urged him to stay alert. They will be here soon. Li Jiaxing responded with an "oh," but felt somewhat dispirited. This was already the 3rd time Zhou Shangfei had said this. It must be said that laying an ambush is truly exhausting. In this cold winter, lying down with a gun for several hours feels like it could freeze a person to death. You can't pee, can't poop, and even need to keep your farts quiet. Fearing to alert the enemy, I wonder how those predecessors managed to endure it. As night deepened, Li Jiaxing's eyes gradually became unfocused, and drowsiness began to creep in. Just as his eyelids were becoming heavy and his head felt like it was fitted with springs, Zhou Shangfei suddenly pushed him and whispered, "Get ready, they are coming." Li Jiaxing felt as if he had missed a step on the stairs, jolting awake instantly. He quickly turned his gaze to the distance, and indeed saw shadows approaching under the faint moonlight. The number was clearly much larger than before. It seemed the entire team had arrived. Li Jiaxing's sleepiness vanished, and he felt incredibly excited, because soon he would be sending his good class vice on his way. Just thinking about it made him a bit thrilled. The only awkward part was the complete darkness. He couldn't see anything clearly. So, he couldn't even tell which one was Feng Ge. Forget it. Since he didn't know which one was Qin Feng, he might as well treat them all as him. Haha, get ready. At this moment, the squad leader lying behind the dirt slope had shining eyes and excitedly raised his hand. Just as he was about to give the order to open fire, a series of whistling sounds suddenly came from behind. Wu Jian frowned and turned to look. He saw fist-sized objects being thrown in a parabolic arc from the woods behind. What are those? Just as Wu Jian was puzzled, there was a sudden loud bang. Several soldiers from the squad felt their sensors vibrate, and immediately smoke erupted from their heads. Oh no, it's grenades, take cover. Wu Jian realized it, but it was already too late. Dozens of grenades fell one after another on their hiding spot, exploding amidst the crowd. The sudden attack shocked the soldiers, and the original ambush formation fell into chaos. Just when they were confused and looking for places to hide, a dense gunfire suddenly erupted from the woods, catching them completely off guard. Wu Jian was eager to organize a counterattack, but unfortunately, the enemy had already seized the initiative. Moreover, the position of the 4th company was easy to defend but difficult to attack, and there was no backup from the rear. In just a moment, almost half of the 4th company had fallen. The enemy was firing while occasionally tossing grenades in their direction. On the contrary, most of their attacks were blocked by the trees, proving ineffective. Damn it, where did these people come from? What the hell is going on? Could it be that the Steelblade Company has other helpers? When did Gu Zhiyong invite reinforcements? While escaping bent over under Zhou Shangfei's cover, Wu Jian was furious and cursing loudly. But soon, laughter echoed from the woods. Fall back. The company commander just wants us to cripple the 4th company. Brothers, hurry up and retreat. Once the Steelblade Company and they are both battered, we can come back and collect the heads. All the credit will be ours. The company commander said, after it's over, everyone gets a special burger as a reward, so let's retreat quickly. Watching the attackers swiftly pull back, Wu Jian felt as if he had been struck by lightning. He never imagined that he would be stabbed in the back by his own people. Old Ba, your eating style is too ugly. Although Wu Jian was furious, he felt something was off. It seemed like something was not right. Did Old Ba really have such boldness? Or had he been bought off by Gu Zhiyong, becoming a double agent? Wu Jian picked up the radio, about to ask what was going on over there. But the 4th Company's men were already angrily pursuing. They were determined to take down the 8th Company, those traitorous scum. Seeing the crowd riled up, Wu Jian, as the company commander, found himself in a difficult position. This kind of situation couldn't be clarified over the radio. He prepared to confront the 8th Company commander face to face. Out of caution, Wu Jian left a squad to snipe the Steel Blade Company. Once the internal conflict was resolved, they would immediately turn their guns outward. By then, the Steel Blade Company shouldn't be too far away. At the same time, hearing the gunfire and explosions, the 8th Company commander thought a battle had started over there. Under the cover of night, he quickly brought his men to support. However, they were ambushed halfway, losing a third of their men on the spot. The 8th Company was directly caught off guard. Shouldn't the Steel Blade Company have been in an ambush? How could they still manage to counterattack against them? This didn't make sense. Could it be that they had helpers? Quick, as long as we take them down, all the credit will be ours. A bunch of rabble thinks they can take credit from us? Who do they think they are? Fall back, let the Steel Blade Company's stragglers take them out. And make sure they don't find out we are the sharpshooters of the 4th Company. In the end, Qin Feng shouted the 5 words sharpshooters of the 4th Company particularly loudly. Upon hearing that it was their own people stabbing them in the back, all the soldiers instantly became furious. The 8th Company commander was filled with rage, nearly bursting with anger. For the sake of some credit, they didn't even spare their own people. Wu Jian, you are truly despicable. Meanwhile, taking advantage of the cover of night, Qin Feng quickly led his men to retreat via a small path. As expected, just as they left, a skirmish broke out behind them. The soldiers from the 4th and 8th Companies mistakenly believed they were being ambushed by each other, leading to a fierce exchange of fire. Qin Feng watched with a wicked smile on his face. Earlier, he had discovered the 4th and 8th Companies lying in wait. So he quickly devised a plan to sow discord between them. The darkness of the night and the lack of light in the wilderness meant that neither side knew the other's situation, which gave Qin Feng the perfect opportunity. Of course, this tactical maneuver had many flaws upon closer inspection. If the 2 company commanders took a moment to discuss, they would realize they had been deceived. However, Qin Feng's main objective was to incite the emotions of the ordinary soldiers. In a regiment, the companies often had a competitive relationship, and it was common for them to not see eye to eye. Once the lower-ranking soldiers were stirred up, even if the 4th Company commander and others noticed something was wrong, they wouldn't be able to stop it. After all, when people are angry, their rationality is completely overridden. Watching the 2 companies fighting fiercely in the distance, Tang Lei and the others could hardly contain their amusement. Their admiration for Qin Feng deepened. If they were in his shoes, they would never have thought of fighting a war this way. Meanwhile, the soldiers of the 4th and 8th Companies were becoming increasingly frantic. Grenades were flying everywhere, and bullets were being fired as if they were free. Fortunately, the commanders of both sides remained relatively restrained. They were grabbing each other's collars and spitting insults at one another. Wu Jian, you bastard. To grab the credit, you're firing on your own men? How much did you take from Gujiang, huh? Bullshit. Your 8th Company attacked first. Stop playing the victim. Damn it. We've been waiting for your signal. We didn't move at all. It was you who attacked us halfway and wanted to take all the credit. Get lost. We've been lying in ambush. When the hell would we have the time to ambush you? What do you mean? You said it was your 4th Company that ambushed us? Of course. We're on the same side. If I attack you, how will my brothers see me after the exercise ends? The commander will skin me alive. As they continued to argue, both men suddenly realized something was off. Wu Jian was jolted by a sudden chill that shot up his spine. Stop. Everyone stop. Don't shoot anymore. The 2 company commanders exchanged terrified glances, realizing they had fallen into a trap. We've been set up. That Steel Knife Company is sowing discord. Scatter. Quickly disperse. Run. Run where? Gu Zhiyong emerged from the darkness, a sinister smile on his face, gun in hand. Following closely, a swarm of Steel Knife Company soldiers appeared around them, grinning maliciously like a giant net, surrounding the remaining men from the 4th and 8th Companies. Chapter 168. Despairingly Jiejun. Brother Feng, don't come over. Gu Zhiyong, I swear I'll get you. Old Six, you're despicable and shameless. You have no face at all. The 2 leaders of the 4th and 8th squads shouted angrily, pointing in Qin Feng's direction. On the other side, Gu Zhiyong scratched his face, contemplating whether he should speak up to remind them. Well, maybe it's better to let it go. Having someone else take the blame is quite nice. Qin Feng, however, had a look of disbelief on his face. In this darkness, can you at least see my face clearly before you start cursing? Is Gu Zhiyong really that tall and handsome? But Qin Feng couldn't be bothered to argue, waving his hand to order the attack. In an instant, a barrage of gunfire poured into the enemies surrounded. In just one exchange, they lost over a third of their men. However, the leaders of the 4th and 8th squads wouldn't just stand by and be slaughtered. They immediately ordered a counterattack. Everyone quickly dropped to the ground, either taking cover or firing back while retreating. Unfortunately, the previous 2 ambushes had already significantly weakened these 2 squads. Now, trapped by the Steel Knife squad, they were completely in a passive position. Even their counterattack struggled to make much of an impact. Retreat, hurry up. Seeing that they were clearly outmatched, Wu Jian could only shout for a retreat while calling for reinforcements. However, since he wanted to take all the credit with the 8th squad, he hadn't informed the other 2 squads. This meant that reinforcements couldn't arrive in time. To make matters worse, the Steel Knife Squad was known for their close combat skills, making them extremely fierce in individual combat. Gu Xiong led his group like a sharp blade, charging fiercely. It was as if they were cutting through the battlefield without any resistance, splitting the enemy forces apart with the aim of defeating them one by one. Concentrate fire at the 3 o'clock direction and wipe out the left side. Yes. Qin Feng led a team, charging like a wild bull, pursuing the panicked soldiers of the 4th squad. They used cover while firing and retreating. Zhou Shangfei had rich combat experience. Even while retreating, he organized effective counterattacks to slow down Qin Feng and his team's pursuit, but it was futile. Qin Feng raised his hand and made 2 tactical gestures. Lu Yong and Wu Jin immediately understood, splitting into 2 teams like crab sticks torn apart from the middle, quickly pursuing from both sides. At the same time, Qin Feng's speed increased significantly, rapidly closing the distance between them. Bang, bang, bang. Bullets kept flying in from 3 sides. Zhou Shangfei's squad had no idea which direction to defend against. Smoke was rising around them, and the original team of 10 or so quickly dwindled to just 3 or 4. Zhou Shangfei cursed inwardly. I clearly set a trap for others. Yet now I've fallen into their scheme. He ordered the others to flee first while he stayed behind to cover them, using a tree for cover. He was about to turn back and fire a couple of shots when a face suddenly appeared in front of him like a ghost. Zhou Shangfei nearly lost his mind from fright. In the moonlight, he finally recognized who it was. Qin Feng, squad leader, long time no see. Qin Feng smiled slightly at him and then swung his fist directly. Zhou Shangfei originally wanted to build some connections, but the next second, he received a heavy punch to the left side of his face. Then, his feet left the ground, and he flew to the right side as if riding on clouds. Just as he hit the ground, he was immediately forced into a deep sleep. Following that, he was given 3 more shots by Qin Feng. Watching the white smoke rise from his head, Qin Feng finally felt at ease to leave. However, the next moment, he suddenly stopped in his tracks. He noticed that a patch of weeds not far away seemed to be moving. You can't see me. I can't see you, he thought. At that moment, Li Jiaxing, hiding in the grass, was shivering with a gun in his hands. He was silently reciting a 5-word mantra, hoping that Qin Feng was blind and wouldn't notice his hiding spot, thus allowing him to escape. The gunfire gradually faded away, and outside slowly became quiet. But Li Jiaxing's heartbeat was pounding like a drum. At this moment, he felt as if he was fully immersed in the environment. It didn't feel like a training exercise. It felt like a real battlefield. His comrades around him seemed to have truly all fallen in battle. Li Jiaxing initially planned to stay hidden until the match was over, hoping to survive until the end. But the thought of Zhou Shangfei sacrificing himself to protect everyone weighed heavily on him. The thought of Qi Ming asking him to seek revenge on Qin Feng filled him with a sense of responsibility and mission, compelling him to grip his gun tightly and firm his resolve. I must survive and escape. Only by reuniting with the others can I avenge my squad leader, company commander, and brothers. After mentally preparing himself, Li Jiaxing took a deep breath and slowly pushed aside the tall grass in front of him. He peeked out like a groundhog, looking left and right to confirm that no one was around, and he immediately relaxed. Then, he grabbed his gun and prepared to crawl away in a low posture. But after crawling less than 4 or 5 meters, a pair of large feet suddenly appeared in front of him. Li Jiaxing's heart sank, and he cautiously raised his head. The next second, he indeed saw that chilling smile. Surprised? Happy? Li Jiaxing almost scared himself to death, jumping up and running away. But Qin Feng grabbed the strap of his gun, yanking him back. Bro, we finally meet. Why are you running? I want to eat you. Vice Squad Leader. I'm sorry, I really am. What did you do wrong? I shouldn't have agreed to Qi Ming's request to seek revenge on you. He even told me to make sure to empty the magazine on you. Hearing this, Qin Feng couldn't help but laugh. However, seeing Li Jiaxing's cowardly appearance reminded him of the scene outside the restroom back then. Qin Feng released his grip and said seriously, as brothers, I want to make it hard for you. Just manage to withstand 3 moves from me, and I'll let you go. Li Jiaxing kept retreating, shaking his head like a rattle drum. Vice Squad Leader, don't joke around. I saw you punch Zhou Squad Leader away just now. Seeing that Qin Feng seemed not to hear him and was stepping closer, Li Jiaxing was terrified. Vice Squad Leader, please, don't come any closer. Brother Feng, let's talk it out. Please don't come any closer. Qin Feng, I warn you, if you dare to take another step closer, I'll show you what it means to die for this. As he spoke, Li Jiaxing pressed the gun barrel against his chin, looking like he was ready to sacrifice himself. Qin Feng was taken aback at first, then burst into laughter. He didn't expect this kid to have such spirit, holding up what he had in his hand. Qin Feng chuckled and said, even if you want to be a martyr, you should consider the actual situation, right? Li Jiaxing stumbled over a rock and fell to the ground. When he looked down and saw the gun, He was instantly struck with despair. Damn it, where's my magazine? When did you take my magazine out? Li Jiaxing almost cried. He couldn't even sacrifice himself properly. Qin Feng walked up to him and said casually, all right, I'm not teasing you anymore. Just tell me where the other two companies are roughly located, and I'll let you go. No way. We might be good brothers off the battlefield, but here, we are enemies. Li Jiaxing held his head high, looking defiant. Seeing him so stubborn, Qin Feng shrugged and clenched his fist, ready to give him a lesson. Just as Qin Feng was about to get serious, Li Jiaxing quickly raised his hand to stop him. Wait. Brother Feng, I really don't know where they are. I'm just a rookie. How would I know about the company commanders? I'm not as capable as you to lead troops in a battle. That made sense. Never mind. I want to make it hard for you. Hearing that he wouldn't be put in a difficult position, Li Jiaxing felt a surge of joy. He thought to himself, as expected of a good brother, always taking special care of me. He shifted to the side and tentatively asked, so, can I leave now? Bang, bang, bang. Just as he finished speaking, Qin Feng's gun went off. With the sound of gunfire, Li Jiaxing's sensory device vibrated wildly, and a large cloud of smoke erupted from above his head. In less than 10 seconds, he was completely lifeless. Qin Feng approached, laid him flat on the ground, and placed a leaf on his face, symbolizing peace for the deceased. Then, he searched Li Jiaxing's belongings and left. Li Jiaxing lay in the grass, his eyes vacant and helpless. It was as if he had been thoroughly violated, tears glistening at the corners of his eyes. Qimeng, I couldn't avenge you. And now I've lost my life too. I'm so useless as a brother. Delicious chicken noodle soup is ready. At 9 o'clock that evening, several cooks were ordered to prepare the meals and deliver them to the rest area at the shooting range. The competition would last for 2 days, so the leaders' meals were sent directly over those 2 days. However, as soon as they entered the room, they felt something was off. It was eerily quiet and cold, as still as a graveyard. Leaders, it's time to eat? The head cook cautiously asked while holding the tray. Qiu Guohai sat behind the commander, signaling repeatedly. The head cook was sharp enough to have the food placed down quickly and leave. Commander, let's eat something first. It's already this late. Then, with a smile, Qiu Guohai quietly reminded him. Only then did the commander respond with a grunt and shift his gaze away from the screen. In the lounge, there was a folding table, and everyone moved their stools aside to gather around the table to eat. In addition to chicken noodle soup, there were several signature dishes. At this moment, some were enjoying their meal, slurping the noodles happily, while others chewed as if they were eating wax, feeling the discomfort of the hard stools. Qiu Guohai lowered his head, picking at the noodles in his bowl with chopsticks, seemingly waiting for the storm to arrive. Sure enough, a few minutes later, Lu Chong put down his chopsticks. Qiu Guohai. Yes. Qiu Guohai sprang up as if he had springs on his backside. At the same time, the chief of staff and the political commissar next to him lowered their heads even further. Lu Chong wiped his mouth and looked up at Qiu Guohai, his tone full of teasing. I really didn't expect that a confrontation drill would expose so many shocking issues. Do your border defense regiment hold ideological and political classes regularly? Have you ever seriously addressed the ideological work of the junior officers? The song Unity is Strength has been sung from the recruit company all the way to now. Have you ever really thought about it? At this, Sun Quan and political commissar Ji Mingyuan could no longer sit still. They quickly stood up, sincerely admitting their mistakes. Among them, Ji Mingyuan was the most unfortunate. He had rushed over after finishing his work at the regiment, arriving only to witness this embarrassing scene. The two companies had originally designed an ambush against the opponent, only to be internally divided and defeated. In the end, they were completely overwhelmed and suffered heavy losses. Currently, the 2nd and 4th companies had been severely damaged, with all their company commanders killed. The 8th company was left in a dire state, with their commander narrowly escaping. In just one day, nearly half of the combat strength from 5 companies had been eliminated by the Steel Blade Company through various means. Ji Mingyuan regretted coming. Had he known, he would have stayed away to avoid the scolding. Lu Chong pointed at the footage on the screen and snorted, you were outnumbered 5-1. Yet you let them toy with you like monkeys. While the Steel Blade Company had indeed shown good tactics and strong individual combat capabilities, the follow-up statement made Qiu Guohai and the others tense up. They straightened up, not daring to breathe too heavily. However, your performance shouldn't have been this poor. Lu Chong's tone intensified, his face showing anger. The 5 companies acted with their own agendas, each fighting their own battles, especially the 4th and 8th companies, who created such a huge blunder in their quest for credit. If they could have united against a common enemy, they wouldn't have been so passive. Faced with Lu Chong's reprimand, Qiu Guohai and the others felt none of the authority they had as leaders in the regiment. They resembled 3 students being punished by their teacher. In contrast, Guohai Tao, although he had already put down his chopsticks, remained firmly seated on the bench. Today's chicken noodle soup is really good. The chicken has a rich flavor, definitely free range. Guohai Tao stared at the bowl in front of him, secretly thinking to himself. At the same time, He was also glad that the company commander's choice was indeed correct. Letting Qin Feng lead the operation was truly the right decision. Wu Jian knew Ge Xiong very well and understood his tactical style. However, he was completely unaware of Qin Feng's strategies, so it was inevitable that he would stumble this time. Xiao Gua, someone called. Just as Gua Haitao was about to stand up, Lu Chong waved his hand, signaling him to sit back down. This differential treatment made Xiao Guahai and the others feel a burning embarrassment. A captain instructor had the right to sit, while these colonels could only stand. Was there anything more humiliating than this? Lu Chong, seemingly changing his demeanor, was no longer as stern as before. Instead, he asked with a warm smile, "You mentioned earlier that Ge Xiong delegated authority to Qin Feng, allowing him to lead the Steel Knife Company in battle. So, does that mean the tactics we just saw were also his doing?" Gua Haitao nodded vigorously. "Commander, I can say with 100% certainty that this was arranged by Qin Feng. You know our company commander's personality. He is straightforward." Upon hearing this, Sun Quan felt a twitch in the corner of his eye. He had suspected it was Qin Feng's idea. From the moment Qin Feng used the encirclement tactic, he knew this kid had talent. Even though it had now been proven true, he couldn't feel happy about it at all. Because those soldiers weren't from their regiment. They belonged to someone else. Xiao Guahai and Ji Mingyuan also felt as if they had suffered a silent loss. They were so close, just a little bit. And Qin Feng would have been on their side. Damn it, the more they thought about it, the angrier and more uncomfortable they felt. Lu Chong nodded slightly. He understood Ge Xiong well and knew how capable he was. Although he fought fiercely, like a tiger descending a mountain, he could easily get carried away. While Ge Xiong occasionally used some tactics, they were never this clever. So he inferred that there must have been a skilled hand guiding this battle. And that skilled hand was naturally Qin Feng. "Commander, Qin Feng is indeed a rare all-round talent. Whether it's tactics, strategy, or military skills, he is exceptionally competent." Gua Haitao praised Qin Feng extravagantly in front of the commander. Since they were on the same side, it was natural to take the opportunity to take credit. Lu Chong gradually showed a smile on his face, clearly pleased with this soldier. In the military, as long as you have the ability and are strong enough, you don't have to worry about not being appreciated by your superiors. Let us do this. Although the Steel Knife Company has gained the upper hand now, they've also lost quite a few people in previous battles, so the outcome is still uncertain. Watching here dryly isn't very interesting. How about we play a little game? Hearing this, several people exchanged glances, none of them knowing what the commander was really up to. Lu Chong, with a playful spirit, cheerfully suggested, "Let us bet on who will achieve final victory. If the Steel Knife Squad wins, I will immediately allocate some funds from the Border Defense Unit to your account. Additionally, there will be an extra surprise for the individuals who perform exceptionally well in battle." Gua Haitao swallowed hard. Without a doubt, he thought it would definitely be the Steel Knife Squad. Then, Lu Chong turned his gaze to the three standing like telephone poles, Xiao Guahai and his team. "If you three win, then I need you all to do a deep reflection at the division. Just submit a 5,000 word self-critique each." Hearing this, the three of them nearly dropped to their knees collectively. "Commander, isn't this a bit too hasty? Isn't it a bit biased? Moreover, why do we have to allocate funds from our unit? This is ridiculous." Seeing that the three remained silent, Lu Chong glared and slammed the table. "Did you hear what I said?" The three of them quickly nodded, feeling guilty. Yes. At this moment, they could only pin their hopes on the remaining two squads. They hoped that they wouldn't make any more mistakes and quickly eliminate the Steel Knife Squad. Chapter 170. How can you sleep at a time like this? In the darkness, figures stumbled and ran in a panic. They were all individuals who had narrowly escaped from the encirclement of the Steel Knife Squad. The leading man, covered in dirt and dust, with a rank of captain, was Su Tiankai from the cooking team of the 4th Squad. Initially, he had sought out the instructor, hoping to participate in the competition as a non-combatant, aiming to impress the squad leader and return to a combat role. However, he never expected that nearly the entire 4th Squad would be wiped out, leaving only him and about 10 others who managed to escape. "Quick, speed up. We'll soon meet up with the 7th Squad." Su Tiankai shouted back as he continued to run breathlessly. But at that moment, a cold and harsh voice suddenly rang out from the darkness ahead. "Don't move." "Who goes there?" Su Tiankai quickly stopped, raising his hands. "No, don't shoot. It's me. I don't know who you are. State your name." "I'm Su Tiankai, the former squad leader of the 1st Platoon of the 4th Squad." Su Tiankai knew the person on the other side must be friendly forces, otherwise, they would have already opened fire. He raised his hands and was about to move forward but was yelled at to stop. "Don't come over." The person on the other side kept their gun raised, showing no sign of relaxing their vigilance. Password: "A day as husband and wife brings 100 days of grace." Before Su Tiankai could fully process this, he heard the chilling sound of bullets being chambered. Terrified, he and the group behind him nearly knelt down on the spot. Don't shoot. I know the password." Su Tiankai hurriedly replied, monks eat vegetarian, not meat. Password correct. Upon hearing that, the group on the other side lowered their guns, and Su Tiankai and the others breathed a sigh of relief. Learning from the lessons of the 4th and 8th squads, there was a concern that a traitor might infiltrate and cause trouble. Therefore, the 7th squad had temporarily established this password and disseminated it through the public frequency. As long as they couldn't answer, they would all be considered spies from the Steel Knife Company. Fortunately, before escaping, Su Tiankai learned about this situation from the company commander. Otherwise, they would likely have died at the hands of their own people. How many of you are left? What about Wu Jian and Lao Ba? The leaders of the 7th and 11th companies quickly approached, their faces dark with anger. Su Tiankai gasped for breath, a sorrowful expression on his face as he replied. Our company commander was the first to sacrifice. Company Commander 8 was caught up by the enemy while we were retreating together and also bravely fell. Now, there are only about 10 of us left. The 7th company commander slammed his fist against a nearby tree trunk in frustration. Those two bastards, Lao Si and Lao Ba, have brought this upon themselves. The 11th company commander also looked furious. To hog the credit, they set an ambush without telling us? In the end, they didn't catch their prey and instead got their eyes pecked out by the eagle. It's truly poetic justice. The heavens spare no one. And this is what they deserve. Su Tiankai forced a smile and tried to persuade them. Now is not the time to discuss this. Although we've suffered a great loss, the Steel Knife Company has also lost some personnel. Hearing this, the expressions of the two men softened a little. How many are roughly left in the Steel Knife Company? Su Tiankai immediately responded. Based on my calculations, the Steel Knife Company is likely left with just over 60, maybe not even 70 people. But we still have nearly 2.5 companies of troops, and we have more ammunition than they do. Overall, we still hold the advantage. Although the two company commanders didn't speak, they silently agreed. Despite being in a passive position at the beginning, while their side's strength was diminished, the Steel Knife Company was also facing attrition. For the Steel Knife Company, the fewer combat personnel they had, the more limited their effectiveness would be. Simply put, the combat capability of over 100 people is not simply halved when reduced to 50. The decrease in personnel directly weakens their combat power by a large margin. The guerrilla warfare, the sparrow tactics, and the schemes of Gu Ziyong have all been exhausted. The 7th Company commander said coldly. The 11th Company commander squinted his eyes. 60-some people against nearly 300 of us. As long as we don't show any weakness, it will definitely be Gu Ziyong who loses. The two quickly discussed and devised a tactical strategy. Furthermore, the 7th Company commander assigned the 3rd squad, composed of the remaining scattered troops from the 2nd, 4th, and 8th companies, about 50 men, to Su Tiankai to command. Although they weren't familiar with Su Tiankai, they knew he had served as a staff officer in the regiment. Moreover, he was a genuine captain, a product of a military academy. Therefore, it was most appropriate for him to lead the 3rd squad. Having received command, Su Tiankai felt exhilarated. As long as he could lead this group to defeat the Steel Knife Company, he would be able to prove his worth. The chief of staff, the regiment commander, the political officer, and the division commander were all present to observe the battle. If he can perform exceptionally well in battle, perhaps he will have the chance to return to the headquarters and continue being his advisor. Su Tiankai looked up at the starry sky, a hint of confident sneer on his face. Qin Feng, just wait with your neck clean. I'll be coming for your life soon. Then I will ensure your entire unit is left with nothing. In a natural cave sheltered from the wind on the western side of the mountains, a small fire was lit. The cave was quite small, accommodating no more than 15 or 16 people. Therefore, everyone could only take turns entering to warm up. Due to the cramped space, they were packed together like sardines in a can. However, even so, they were quite satisfied. After all, they had been on the move for an entire day. Finding a place to shelter from the wind in the jungle at night, where they could even secretly light a fire, was indeed not easy. Gu Ziyong warmed some water in a kettle and handed it to Qin Feng, who was resting against a tree outside. Here, take a sip to warm up. Thank you, Captain. Qin Feng was not being overly polite. He took it and drank a big gulp. By then, it was already late December, and the nighttime temperature was only 4 or 5 degrees. The temperature in the woods was often lower than in other places, feeling like only 1 or 2 degrees. At that moment, being able to drink a sip of hot water was truly a special treat. I should be thanking you. Gu Ziyong took out a piece of jerky from his pocket, broke it in half, and shared it with Qin Feng. If it weren't for you discovering the ambush set by the 4th Company commander ahead of time, my team would have been wiped out long ago. Can't say that, Qin Feng replied while chewing on the jerky, smiling. The 4th Company commander knows you well, so he set this trap specifically for you. But he didn't expect that you delegated authority to me, and I just happened not to trust him. Gu Ziyong laughed heartily. Hearing you say that makes me feel much better. But the next moment, he put away his smile and said sternly, Qin Feng, although we have gained some advantages in the early stages, they still have more than 2 companies of troops, the 7th and 11th companies. while not the strongest in the regiment, cannot be underestimated. After suffering such a big loss, they will definitely huddle together tightly. It will be difficult for us to succeed with surprise attacks again. Qin Feng remained silent, gazing blankly ahead. Seeing him not speak, Gu Zhiyong sighed helplessly, thinking he was at a loss. Sigh, the gap in strength is so great. Achieving this much is already remarkable. The enemy is not foolish. After suffering such a heavy loss, how could they not be on high alert? Although Qin Feng is smart, he is not a miracle worker. It's impossible for him to have a solution every time. While Gu Zhiyong was lost in thought, Qin Feng was actually struggling with a piece of beef jerky stuck in his teeth. A strand of meat was lodged between his teeth, and his tongue was nearly cramping trying to get it out. Damn it. Although Qin Feng didn't have obsessive-compulsive disorder, having something stuck in his teeth was incredibly annoying. Fortunately, after some effort, he finally gave up. To hell with it. I'm not picking it out. I'll just leave it in there as emergency rations. Squad leader, what should we do next? I've actually already thought it through. You've thought it through? Gu Zhiyong grabbed his shoulder, his eyes full of surprise. Qin Feng nodded. His habit had always been to plan one step ahead while preparing for the next. Therefore, the current situation was already within his expectations. Gu Zhiyong, visibly excited, asked, "So how do you plan to proceed?" Qin Feng looked at him seriously and said, "I plan to not engage first." Not engage? What do you mean by that? Sleep. Sleep? Gu Zhiyong's eyes widened like copper bells, his tone rising slightly. What do you mean sleep at a time like this? How can we sleep at a time like this? Just as Gu Zhiyong was about to press further, Qin Feng had already closed his eyes, tightened his collar, and leaned against a tree to rest. Gu Zhiyong felt like he was about to jump into action, only to suddenly feel deflated. Just as I was gearing up, you throw this at me? Chapter 171. Are you here for confrontation or a spring outing? I think we need to stay vigilant tonight. Upon hearing Su Tiancai's words, the squad leaders of the 7th and 11th companies frowned slightly. Are you suggesting that Gu Zhiyong will launch a night raid? Yes. Su Tiancai nodded confidently. If I were him, I would definitely do it. A night raid is the only way to win with fewer troops by taking risks. While that made sense, what was the basis for this? The basis is that before I came here, I specifically analyzed Gu Zhiyong's various tactics during exercises and confrontations. Su Tiancai said calmly. I found that he is very aggressive in the early stages of battle, just like the name of his company. But as time goes on, he becomes weaker and more impatient. The evaluation period is only 2 days, and we've already gone through almost half of it, but we still have so many people. If he doesn't seize this opportunity to find ways to launch a surprise attack and reduce our numbers, what will he fight us with during the day? Once he shows himself, he will immediately be chased down like a drowning dog. The squad leaders of the 7th and 11th companies exchanged glances, agreeing with this assessment. They too felt that Gu Zhiyong was likely to launch a night raid. In a situation where the enemy had the numbers, they couldn't think of any other surprising tactics that could turn the tide. Moreover, Su Tiancai was originally a staff officer in the regiment and had studied under the chief of staff for a long time. He surely had considerable expertise in troop deployment and strategy. Adding to that, his analysis was thorough and well-reasoned. Thus, it was difficult for them not to agree. What do you think we should do? Facing their questions, Su Tiancai smiled and replied, it's simple. Divide the troops into 2 or 3 groups and take turns resting while keeping watch. Always have someone on guard around, and set up some traps and bait mines. As long as the Steel Blade Company dares to come over, we can counterattack at the fastest speed and make them run in disarray. The squad leader of the 7th Company nodded. This plan is indeed good. It ensures safety while allowing some people to get rest. Just then, the squad leader raised a suspicious question. What if they don't launch a night attack? Su Tiancai shrugged. If they don't attack, isn't that better? It means they are truly at their wits' end and have no plans left. Once daylight comes, we can easily track their whereabouts and capture them all. The 2 squad leaders discussed briefly and found Su Tiancai's reasoning quite persuasive. They stopped dilly-dallying and immediately passed the orders down. Shifts would change every 2 hours, similar to the standing guard time for the troops. It was now 1 in the morning, and during winter, it usually gets light a bit later, roughly needing 2 to 3 shifts. Watching everyone swiftly act on his suggestion, Su Tiancai suddenly felt as if power had returned to his hands, allowing him to strategize once more. He smiled calmly. Indeed, basic-level troops are not suitable for me. The staff department suits me better. In truth, Su Tiancai was not sure whether Gu Zhiyong and the others would come back to launch a night attack. However, being cautious couldn't hurt. This was a lesson he learned from 2 previous missteps. Therefore, this battle had to be steady and solid. He absolutely could not act recklessly again. Otherwise, it wouldn't just be a return to the cooking team. He would likely be sent to a breeding base to feed pigs. In the lounge next to the shooting range on the back mountain, a television was still glowing faintly. However, all the chairs in front of the screen were empty. Only Gua Haitao sat listlessly on a stool, yawning repeatedly. Currently, both sides were in a state of rest, with no substantial progress. So the division commander went to the regiment's guest house to rest, planning to come back to observe the battle at dawn. Qiu Guohai and a few others wanted to drag Guo Haitao along, but he made excuses to decline. The reason was simple. He felt that before dawn, Qin Feng might lead the team to launch another surprise attack, and he didn't want to miss such an exciting scene. However, Guo Haitao waited in front of the screen, but as time passed, his head began to feel heavy, and he still didn't see the scene he was hoping for. He snapped 2 cigarettes, taking a double dose to stay alert. The smoke made his eyes bloodshot, but he remained stubbornly in front of the screen. Much like the handsome and charming version of himself staying up late to watch the Olympics, waiting for the Chinese team to win, Guo Haitao exhaled clouds of smoke, eagerly staring at the screen, where a figure was sleeping against a tree, quietly hoping for a miracle to occur. Meanwhile, Qin Feng curled up slightly, adjusting to a more comfortable sleeping position. Although it was winter and the outdoor temperature was very low, under the influence of Taiyang Xingjian, it felt as if a small reactor was installed inside him, constantly providing heat to ensure he wouldn't wake up frozen by the cold. Therefore, Qin Feng could sleep comfortably even without needing a fire for warmth. At this moment, a drop of dew slid off a branch and plopped onto Qin Feng's nose. He raised his hand to scratch his nose, slowly opening his eyes a crack. However, the scene before him startled him awake. Only then did Gu Zhiyong, Tang Lei, Lu Yong, Wu Jin, Lu Xiaoguang, and others surround him in a circle. With their arms crossed in front of their chests, they stared at him wide-eyed, not knowing how long they had been standing there. "What are you all doing here? Keeping vigil?" Qin Feng asked. "It's already 4:10 and 56 seconds in the morning. In less than 2 hours, it will be dawn." Gu Zhiyong sighed impatiently, almost shoving his watch into Qin Feng's face. It wasn't that they wanted to stop him from sleeping, but dawn was approaching fast. Anyone who leads troops knows that night is the best time to launch a surprise attack. The clearer the day, the harder it is to fight. Especially since the Steel Blade unit's current strength had significantly decreased, launching a frontal assault would be even more difficult. Therefore, a decision had to be made quickly, or it would be too late by dawn. Seeing everyone looking at him expectantly, Qin Feng showed no signs of urgency. He rummaged through his pocket and pulled out a crumpled tea bag, tossing it to Lu Xiaoguang. "Comrade Lu Xiaoguang, make me a cup of tea." "Got it." Lu Xiaoguang replied without hesitation and hurried off to get hot water. "My goodness, Qin Feng, it's a critical moment, and you're still drinking tea? How can you be so relaxed? Why do you even have a tea bag on you?" This behavior left everyone else dumbfounded. At such a time, who would still think about drinking tea? If they lost this battle, many of them would have to pack up and leave. Moreover, some would be assigned to poor border areas. Whether they would have a good future or not depended entirely on Qin Feng. Yet he still had the leisure to enjoy tea. Rubbing his eyes, Qin Feng was still a bit groggy and really didn't want to talk. Everyone just stood around in a circle, waiting. In the previous battles, Qin Feng had already proven his capabilities through action. So, everyone had developed an unspoken understanding that when there was trouble, they could turn to Qin Feng. It wasn't that the company commander was incapable. It was just that Gu Zhiyong excelled in favorable situations, while turning the tide depended on Qin Feng. He had plenty of clever ideas and various tactics at his disposal. In the current situation, a head-on clash was definitely not going to work. They could only rely on tactics and play a little dirty. Before long, Lu Xiaoguang returned with a cup of tea, warmed by the residual heat of the charcoal in the cave. Although it wasn't made with boiling water, it was warm and already had a bit of tea flavor. After taking a few sips, Qin Feng felt warmth in his stomach. Once he had fully shaken off his sleepiness, he began to outline the next plan. Next, there are only 3 things you need to do: eat, sleep, and space out. What does that mean? Gu Zhiyong asked, puzzled. It means exactly what it says, Qin Feng patiently explained. In a moment, I will bring a group of the fittest and fastest individuals and find ways to harass them from all angles. We will exhaust and torment their mental state, making it so they can't find peace even while eating, sleeping, or doing their business. During this time, you all should conserve your energy. And when night falls and they are at their most fatigued and drowsy, I will contact you to take action. In simple terms, it's about conserving our strength while disturbing the enemy, and then striking with full force on the last night. After hearing Qin Feng's plan, everyone on site felt a sense of enlightenment and astonishment. Brilliant. Gu Zhiyong's eyes sparkled. Using small units to conduct multifaceted harassment during the day would leave the enemy exhausted and unable to rest, continuously weakening their mental state. Then, under the cover of darkness, seizing the right moment to launch a sudden attack would catch the opponent off guard. The clever part of this plan is that normal thinking would suggest the enemy would likely launch a night raid and hide during the day. However, Qin Feng turned this notion on its head, making it impossible for the enemy to predict his moves. Wonderful, 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 Gu Zhiyong exclaimed, repeatedly praising Qin Feng's plan. No wonder this guy had been sleeping for so long and looked so lazy. He had it all planned out. After that, Qin Feng emphasized the details once more and then chose 4 individuals to accompany him. These four were the strongest and fastest in the unit. Once the selection was made, Qin Feng put on a walkie-talkie and quickly vanished into the night. Meanwhile, Gu Zhiyong and the others remained in place to conserve their strength, preparing for the decisive battle later that evening. Watching Qin Feng's disappearing figure and glancing at the 2 decks of playing cards he had shoved into his hand before leaving, Gu Zhiyong's eyes twitched in disbelief. Why on earth did he bring playing cards along with the tea bags? Was this kid here for a competition or a picnic? He shook his head helplessly and turned to walk into the cave. Who wants to go for a break? Raise your hand. Me. 2 hours later, the sky gradually brightened. Surprisingly, a thick fog quietly rolled in. Shadows darted through the woods like white ghosts. Qin Feng raised his hand to wipe the white dew hanging on his eyelashes, and as he looked at the increasingly dense fog, a smile spread across his face. The weather forecast was indeed accurate. It predicted heavy fog 2 days later, and here it was. This would be interesting. Thinking of slacking off today? How about I just post 2 pictures? Chapter 172. 5 people, creating the momentum of a squad. Hey, wake up, it's time to switch shifts. 1 more minute. Just let me sleep for 1 more minute. You've already delayed me for 5 minutes. I'm completely exhausted right now. Hurry up and get up so I can catch a quick nap too. The soldier who was shaken awake grumbled, still a bit groggy. In the military, there are 2 types of people that everyone finds most annoying during guard duty. Those who like to delay their shifts, and those who won't let others do the same. Even if it's just a few minutes of procrastination, every second counts, and it's genuinely satisfying to enjoy those moments. The soldier, holding his gun, stood at the designated position, looking tense. Usually, sentries are divided into open and hidden ones. The open sentry is like him, standing there with a gun, resembling a wooden post. The hidden ones, however, have it easier. They can secretly take a break and even catch some sleep. After drinking too much water, he felt the urge to relieve himself. He glanced around and moved behind a tree. He stealthily unbuckled his belt, just about to let it flow when suddenly a hand reached out from his left side, covering his mouth tightly. The soldier's eyes widened in terror, still needing to relieve himself, when 2 individuals quickly dragged him into the grass and knocked him out. Damn it, couldn't you wait until I was done? He thought, feeling frustrated and annoyed. Now I'm all wet. And how was I supposed to know this guy had prostate issues, taking so long? Meanwhile, another soldier who had just come off duty squatted on the ground, rummaging through his pack for individual rations to prepare breakfast. He turned around to grab his water bottle for a quick heat up, but when he looked back, his rations were gone. He scratched his head, wondering if he was hallucinating. But when he reached for his water bottle, he found that missing too. Surprised, he stood up and looked around in confusion, but the thick fog obscured everything. It was a white blur all around. What the hell? Where's my backpack? He exclaimed, realizing it was missing. He glared at the hidden sentry nearby, suspecting this guy was playing tricks on him. Furious, he approached, pushing aside the grass to confront him, only to find that the hidden sentry had already been knocked out. Enemies. The soldier suddenly realized and turned to run, but a water bottle came flying towards his face. The next second, he collapsed into the grass, his head resting against the unconscious sentries, both peacefully asleep. Qin Feng turned around and continued searching for his target in the thick fog. Soon, he spotted someone squatting in the grass, seemingly in distress. Not good, something's wrong. Su Tiankai had just woken up when he saw the company commanders of the 7th and 11th squads rushing towards him. What happened? Several sentries on the perimeter have been knocked out. Su Tiansai's heart leaped with excitement, instantly shaking off his sleepiness. As I expected, they made their move. The 2 commanders frowned slightly, thinking, didn't you predict they would strike at night? It's already dawn, your calculations are off. Su Tiankai seemed to sense their dissatisfaction and added, they intended to launch a surprise attack at night, but our defenses were too tight, so they had no opportunity. Now that it's dawn, the sentries have lowered their guard. Combined with this heavy fog, it gave them a chance. However, it's good that you found out in time. It's just a few sentries, not a big problem. As long as we regroup quickly, they won't be able to do anything. After Su Tiansai's rambling analysis, the 2 commanders actually believed him. They immediately ordered to quietly regroup the formation. The reason for not doing it swiftly was naturally to avoid alarming the enemy. Only by leaving some openings could they lure the opponents into a trap, allowing for a strong counterattack. Over 100 meters away, heads popped up from a patch of withered yellow shrubs like groundhogs. I took out 3. The 2 of us took out 4. I knocked out 2. The 4 of us looked towards Qin Feng. Should we continue? Qin Feng withdrew his gaze and shook his head. They have already sensed something and are starting to regroup. If we launch another surprise attack, we won't be able to return. The 4 were startled and quickly looked ahead. However, as far as the eye could see, there was nothing but a vast white expanse in the shadows of trees and weeds. They couldn't see anything else. As someone with superior vision, Qin Feng could observe things that others couldn't see, but there was no need to explain this. He had the final say anyway. So what should we do now? Wu Jin asked. What is our purpose here? Qin Feng looked at them and asked. To disturb the enemy when they are tired? Exactly. What specific way should we disturb them? Qin Feng smiled slightly. Have you seen Let the Bullets Fly? Lu Yong was momentarily stunned and tilted his head to ask. Which one is the tall and hard one? Tang Lei quietly added. Aren't you just bullying honest people? Wu Jin looked at Qin Feng seriously. Analyze it. What the hell does that mean, surprise? Alright. I didn't ask you to recite lines. Qin Feng raised his hand to stop them. There's a famous scene in the movie where Zhang Mozi leads a group into Huang Xilang's stronghold. Although there are only 5 of us, we must create the momentum of a platoon. It doesn't matter if we can't hit anyone. The key is to anger them, to make them believe we are the main force. We need to lead them by the nose, exhausting their strength and spirit, understand? Oh, understood. The 4 exchanged glances and immediately showed expressions of realization. It doesn't matter how many of us there are. What matters is how many they think we have. Given the heavy fog, this trick might just work. Remember, we must create the momentum of a platoon. If we can create the momentum of 2 platoons, even better. Keep shooting while running, keep them on their toes. If we get separated, we'll regroup at the point I marked earlier, got it? Understood. The 4 of them smiled as they pulled back the gun bolts. Action. Qin Feng waved his hand, and the 5 quickly dispersed. Bullets flew as if they were free, continuously firing towards the opposite side. From time to time, they would change positions and toss a grenade or 2 forward. They launched an attack. From the sound of gunfire, there were at least a platoon worth of troops. This must be the main force. If we can eliminate these guys, we already won this battle. Hearing the gunfire, Su Tiankai was incredibly excited, as if victory had already been achieved before the fight even began. Both the company commanders of the 7th and 11th companies were also extremely agitated and quickly ordered a counterattack. At the same time, 2 teams were dispatched, preparing to encircle and attack from both sides. However, the opposing side seemed to have anticipated this, retreating while engaging in combat, leaving no opportunities at all. Meanwhile, Commander Lu Chong entered the lounge with Qiu Guohai and 2 others, ready to observe the battle. As soon as they entered, Guohai Tao, who had dark circles under his eyes, quickly stood up to salute. Good day, Commander. Did you not sleep at all last night? Lu Chong asked out of courtesy. Guohai Tao naturally understood that the leader was just making small talk. I dozed off for a bit. Lu Chong nodded and turned his gaze to the screen filled with static, slightly furrowing his brows. What is the situation now? Can we see the live footage? The fog is too thick, the drone can't fly, and even if it did, it wouldn't capture anything, Qiu Guohai quickly explained. How long until it can fly? It should take another hour or 2. Once the sun comes out, the fog will clear up. Lu Chong didn't say much more. The weather was something no one could control. In that case, let us go have breakfast first. By the time we finish, it should be about right. Time passed quickly, and soon it was noon. The 7th and 11th companies had been harassed all morning and were completely exhausted. They realized that the group attacking them was not the main force of the Steel Knife Company, but merely a small squad of 5 or 6 people sent to disrupt them. Although the threat was minor, the humiliation was quite significant. Every time they pursued, the attackers would run away, often splitting up. If they ignored them, the attackers would stick around like a persistent leech, firing from the shadows and causing great distress. One of the attackers was particularly accurate, managing to take out several of their men with each assault, which was both disgusting and infuriating. Su Tiankai stopped to catch his breath, leaning against a tree, equally exhausted. If he, who was skilled at running and had ranked in the regiment, was this tired, one could only imagine how the other soldiers felt. Everyone, rest for 10 minutes. The order from the 7th Company commander was met with strong opposition from Su Tiankai. We can't rest. We need to eliminate those pesky flies first, otherwise, they'll continue to harass us. Shut your mouth. The 11th Company commander yelled back. It's your nonsense that made us chase those few people all morning. From now on, just take care of yourself. You don't need to worry about anything else. Su Tiankai was immediately displeased. What do you mean by that, 11th Company commander? My plan has never had any issues. It's your execution that's lacking. With so many people, you can't catch 5? Is it because your physical training isn't intense enough? You need to look for the problem within yourselves. I'll find your grandfather. The 11th Company commander retorted angrily. Don't think I don't know. You were just a cook in the 4th Company. What are you pretending to be, a big shot here? Do you really think you're part of the regiment's staff? You've been fooling us all along. You really have some nerve. Su Tiankai's face turned red with anger at being exposed. What is wrong with the cook? Can't a cook strategize? The small hides in the market, while the great hides in the kitchen brigade. Su Tiankai was about to retort angrily when the irritating gunfire echoed again from a distance. Damn it, is this never ending? Chapter 173. You are the brain. I am the fist. How many times has this been? Lu Chong held a teacup, his eyes fixed on the screen. Casually turning around, he asked Qiu Guohai. At that moment, Qiu Guohai felt like he was sitting on needles, uncomfortable and anxious. He wished he could be invisible, and even more so, that he wasn't the commander of the Border Defense Regiment, as he simply couldn't afford to lose face. This is the 8th time. Seeing that he couldn't come up with an answer, Gua Haitao enthusiastically chimed in to remind him. Lu Chong responded with an "Oh, Qiu Guahai, stand up." Without thinking, Qiu Guahai quickly stood up from his chair. He was the only one who came today. The deputy and the chief of staff were all absent, finding excuses related to work, afraid of being scolded. Essentially, he was left alone to face the commander's wrath, without anyone to share the blame. Lu Chong sneered. Don't you guys usually practice physical fitness, shooting, and tactical training? 5 people from the Steel Knife Company have thrown over 200 people into chaos. Like a monkey show? This is the 8th disturbance, and we've lost at least 20 to 30 people, yet we've only taken down 3. And 2 of them got away? Qiu Guahai's face turned red, and he stammered for a long time without being able to come up with an explanation. Even he couldn't understand why so many people ended up looking so foolish. Chase them, and we can't catch up. Don't chase. And we'll be provoked and harassed in various ways. How can 5 ordinary veterans be so hard to deal with? Of course, the lead guy is indeed quite capable. There is no doubt about that. He is the fastest, the most accurate, and the most agile. Watching Qiu Guahai get scolded thoroughly, Gua Haitao struggled to keep a straight face, recalling the most painful moments of his life, and trying hard not to laugh. Although the lead person on their side ran fast, even the drone couldn't capture a clear image. He could be 100% certain that it was Qin Feng. Only this kid could come up with such brilliant ideas and possess such extraordinary physical abilities. After all, Gua Haitao had seen him run a 400-meter obstacle course. That speed, that explosiveness, that endurance, he could wear out a grinding stone. Meanwhile, 2 figures were sprinting through the mountains and forests, one in front of the other. After running for 2 kilometers, Qin Feng finally slowed down and stopped. Wiping the sweat off his forehead, he looked back at Wu Jin and asked, "How are you holding up?" "Duh, if I can't hold on, I still have to," Wu Jin replied, his face devoid of color. A crack in his lips, drawing blood. His gaze was unfocused, and his speech became stammered. Qin Feng knew he had reached his limit. Let us take a short break. He pulled out half a pack of compressed biscuits from his pocket and broke it in half, giving one piece to Wu Jin. Wu Jin took it and stuffed it into his mouth, then gulped down a large mouthful of cold water. But the next moment, his stomach convulsed violently, causing him to vomit everything he had just eaten. He knelt on the ground, retching uncontrollably, with spit stringing from his mouth. Tears mixed with mucus streamed down his face. Qin Feng went over, patted him on the back, and offered him his water to rinse his mouth. After a while, Wu Jin finally felt a bit better. "How are you feeling? Any better?" "I'm fine. I feel much better after throwing up." Wu Jin wiped his mouth with his sleeve and shivered as he stood up. Vomiting like this was quite common for soldiers, especially in field units and mobile troops. Such reactions could occur when a person was excessively fatigued or emotionally distressed. It was a form of self-protection, essentially a warning signal from the body. Right now, Wu Jin's physical exhaustion had reached its absolute limit after nearly 12 to 13 hours of continuous combat from daylight until sunset. This was not just a huge drain on physical stamina, but also a significant mental burden. While harassing the enemy, one had to constantly be on guard against their encirclement and ambush. Anyone who has played games knows that after intensely focusing on completing a task, the body often feels extremely fatigued. This was also a downside of sustained harassment tactics, which only someone with Qin Feng's exceptional physique could barely withstand. Others simply could not endure such high-intensity consumption and prolonged marching. Wu Jin was holding on not because of his body, but entirely through sheer willpower. "I need to harass them again before the sun completely sets. You stay here to rest, and later you'll be responsible for coordinating with the company commander and the others." "No way," Wu Jin gasped, his tone filled with stubbornness. "If you go alone to harass them without anyone to help distract them, it's too risky. Anyone in our squad can be sacrificed, but you can't. You're the brain of the team. If something happens to you, this battle will be even harder to win, and we must win." He fixed his gaze on Qin Feng. "I'm a rough man. When I first arrived, I did have a prejudice against you because of the squad leader. I want to apologize for that now. You're an excellent soldier, far better than me, and a remarkable commander. I may not have a flexible mind like yours, but I have my fists and strength. Even if I have to fall, my fists must fall in front of you." Hearing Wu Jin's words, Qin Feng felt a surge of warmth and was deeply moved. The bonds in the military were pure, without much scheming. Even if there were misunderstandings, once resolved, everything would be fine. In this place, brotherhood truly existed. As long as they were on the battlefield, as long as they wore the uniform, one could unreservedly entrust their back to anyone. "Bangai, why are you suddenly being so sentimental? It's making me want to squeeze out some tears to set the mood. Come on, do you think this is a movie set, trying to create an atmosphere?" Wu Jin playfully punched him on the shoulder. He realized that Qin Feng always had a mix of seriousness and playfulness. He had never seen anyone go into a confrontation while carrying tea bags and playing cards. All right, I've rested enough. Give the order. How much ammunition do you have left? 3 grenades and the last round in the magazine. That's enough. Let's make one last strike before it gets dark. Qin Feng smirked, saying, once we're done, we can take a break. Next, it'll be the company commander's turn to take the stage. Damn it. How many times has it been? Aren't you tired of this? Do you think this is a public restroom? Just come and go as you please. The soldiers from the 7th and 11th companies, their heads smoking, shouted angrily at the 2 figures in the distance. The 2 company commanders were also quite troubled by this scene. After so many confrontations and exercises, it had always been straightforward. Even when employing ambush tactics or strategies, it had never been this annoying. To put it bluntly, it was like 2 pesky mosquitoes. They might not be deadly, but they keep buzzing around and biting you, making you uncomfortable, right? Watching those 2 get away after their antics. The 2 company commanders didn't even want to order anyone to chase them anymore. After all, they couldn't catch up anyway, so why waste energy? Plus, after a whole day of harassment, the team was in poor condition. A glance around showed everyone looking exhausted, like zombies. It's getting dark, you must stay vigilant. They will definitely launch an ambush tonight. Their constant harassment during the day was meant to wear us down physically and mentally for the night. Shut your mouth. Before Su Tiankai could finish his analysis, he was lifted by the collar by the 7th company commander. It's obvious what to do. Do I really need you to say it? What I need now are methods to deal with them, solutions, do you understand? Su Tiankai got sprayed in the face with saliva. After thinking seriously for a moment, he provided his solution. I believe the key to breaking the deadlock is summed up in 4 words. Prepare for battle. After hearing this, the 7th company commander was almost furious. He felt like he had been humiliated with a simple equation. This kind of vague and grand statement, do you need to teach me? It's like asking someone how to get rich, and they reply with hard work is the way to wealth. The 7th company commander pushed him away, no longer counting on him. The only reliable option now was himself. The 2 company commanders gathered the remaining troops together. They ordered everyone to take turns resting and adjusting their condition in preparation for the enemy's potential attack at any moment. Meanwhile, in the cave, the atmosphere was equally tense. Gu Zhiyong scanned the other 3 with vigilance and then slammed 5 cards down on the ground. Tonghua Shan, ha ha ha. Sorry, it's me again who won. Squad leader. How come you always have such good cards? Are you cheating? Come on, we're not playing for money. It's just for fun. What cheating? Gu Zhiyong stood up, just about to go out for a quick bathroom break when the walkie-talkie at his waist went off. He quickly picked it up and answered. Hey, Qin Feng. How's it going over there? Qin Feng replied. The preparations are almost done. It's your turn to take the stage. You guys head southeast. We'll meet at point A, alright? No problem. After hanging up, Gu Zhiyong's face was filled with excitement. Pack up. It's time for us to show our skills. Yes, everyone was spirited and imposing, like fierce tigers descending the mountain. Although there were only about 50 people, they exuded the momentum of a whole battalion. Chapter 174. The squad leader is just here to take the heat. Qiu Guohai, go brew me a pot of tea, strong tea. Looks like we'll be pulling an all-nighter tonight, Lu Chong said in a nonchalant tone, almost poking Qiu Guohai in the face with his thermos. Qiu Guohai had no choice but to reluctantly take the cup and go to the side to brew tea for the commander. Logically speaking, Guohai Tao had the lowest rank in the room, so he should be the one doing this kind of work. But since the Steel Knife Company performed so well in the assessment, and with Sun Quan and Ji Mingyuan both absent, this task fell on him. It's starting. The final showdown is about to begin. After handing the thermos back to the commander, Qiu Guohai hurriedly sat down. The 3 of them fixed their eyes on the screen, not blinking. Although the night vision effect of the drone wasn't too great, and the image was quite blurry, they could vaguely see many small dots moving quickly around the trees. They were advancing in a curved formation, beginning to encircle the positions of the 7th and 11th companies. Soon, the sounds of gunfire and grenade explosions began to echo. Just listening to the sounds, one could imagine how fierce the battle was. Qiu Guohai clenched his fists, unable to catch his breath. Only by turning the situation around could they recover the face they lost and the losses they suffered. Of course, it was not just about face. It was also related to the future development of their regiment. Now it depended on whether those guys could withstand this blow. Come on, comrades. There are so many of you. Just a little effort could drown them. Beside him, Guohai Tao was fixated on the screen, fists clenched, feeling equally excited. Old Go. Qin Feng, whether we end up eating dirt or meat depends on you. You must win decisively. But at that moment, the commander frowned and suddenly exclaimed. Immediately, the expressions of the 2 beside him changed as if they had hit the brakes. What is going on? Why did the fight suddenly stop? Are they scared? Ha ha ha. They know they can't win. They're scared and giving up. On the screen, the small dots began to retreat frantically, while the 7th Company started to pursue aggressively, as if chasing down a group of defeated soldiers. At this moment, Gua Haitao and Xiao Guahai displayed completely different expressions. One frowned deeply, looking extremely displeased, while the other beamed with joy, blooming like a flower. However, Lu Chong was still focused on the screen, and after a short while, he discerned the article inside. Gu Zhiyong and the others were not actually losing. They were merely conducting a feint attack. What? Xiao Guahai's eyes widened in disbelief. They have already harassed us so many times during the day, and now they're feinting? What are they trying to do? Drag this out until the end of the match. Gua Haitao quickly caught on, his face lighting up with a smile. Captain Xiao, didn't you notice? Although the previous engagement was intense, it seems that there was no substantial contact between the two sides. It was mostly just probing, and our numbers have hardly decreased. Have you ever seen a retreating side that remains this orderly after a defeat? Xiao Guahai felt a bit confused, struggling to grasp what the other side was really up to. They had been harassed all day, yet they weren't attacking now. What were they thinking? Could it be that they really wanted to drag it out until dawn, aiming for a draw? At this moment, the captains of the 7th and 11th companies shared the same thought. Stop chasing, everyone come back. All of you. They called back everyone who had pursued. After exchanging glances, their faces showed not a hint of joy, but rather a perplexed frown. After the recent skirmish, they had lost 7 or 8 men, while the opponent had only lost 2. It could be said that both sides had suffered little, like mosquito bites. What on earth was Gu Zhiyong trying to pull? Just as they were about to engage seriously, they turned tail and ran, like a bunch of rabbits. Could it be that once they saw our defensive formation, they felt it was too difficult to break through, so they chose to give up? Were they trying to drag it out to the end for a draw? You're all guessing wrong. At that moment, a wise voice echoed from behind them. The two turned around and were indeed met with an annoyingly familiar face. Su Tiankai, what nonsense do you want to spout now? The 7th company captain asked with a displeased expression. Is this a place for you to speak? Go somewhere cool and stay there. The 11th company captain also shot him a disdainful look. Although Su Tiankai was seething with anger inside, he reminded himself to stay calm for the greater good. Right now, achieving victory and proving his own strength was the most important thing. He took a deep breath, suppressed his anger, and spoke in a low voice. Both company commanders, I did make a misjudgment earlier, but this time, I hope you will listen to me and quickly return to defend and reinforce the fortifications. The two exchanged glances, revealing scornful smiles. What makes you think we would listen to you? Su Tiankai snorted coldly. If you don't listen, the next outcome will only be a dead end. I'm not trying to alarm you. I'm just stating the facts. You two are currently our only hope. If you lose this match, I believe the captain will certainly flay you alive. As for me, I don't care. I've already gone to the cooking team to do odd jobs. At worst, I'll just end up farming and feeding pigs. However, you are different. Seeing Su Tiansai's nonchalant demeanor, the expressions of the two company commanders immediately darkened. They truly couldn't afford to lose, nor could they allow it. Whether for their troops or for their future personal development, this battle had to be won. You go first. Let's see if what you say makes sense. The 7th company commander was now cautious. Su Tiankai didn't hold back and directly shared his analysis. The recent attacks were actually a smokescreen set up to confuse them. Smokescreen? The two exchanged glances, frowning in disbelief. Yes, Su Tiankai nodded. During the day, they kept harassing us to wear us down physically and mentally, making us mistakenly believe that they would launch a full-scale attack at night. Isn't that right? The 11th company commander interjected. Yes, but also no. Su Tiankai seemed to have a moment of clarity, becoming exceptionally alert. They were indeed preparing to attack under the cover of darkness, but not just yet. It was only 9 in the evening, and dawn was still a long way off. They might launch several more rounds of attacks like the previous ones. When they had worn us down to the point where the soldiers could barely keep their eyes open and were too exhausted to lift their weapons, that would be the moment they truly struck. Hiss! Both the 7th and 11th company commanders gasped in unison, goosebumps instantly covering their bodies. This tactic was incredibly vicious. They intended to wear us down and drag us down. Gu Zhiyong, I'm going to have an early morning briefing. Damn it, you sly rascal. Have you even had children? Su Tiankai couldn't help but curse. Commander Gu is indeed unscrupulous in his quest to win the battle. His mind is darker than ink. Even I, as an advisor, have been tricked into this. Meanwhile, about a kilometer away in a grove of trees, Gu Zhiyong had sneezed repeatedly, nearly blowing his nose off. What's wrong, Commander? Qin Feng stopped and turned back with concern. Gu Zhiyong rubbed his nose, looking uncomfortable. Damn it, I feel like someone is cursing me from behind. Qin Feng laughed. That's not surprising. Everyone thinks you're in charge of the team. So of course, they're all cursing you. Chapter 175, The Eagle Watch Tactic. Unpreventable Gu Zhiyong's eyelid twitched twice. Although he had prepared himself for criticism and resentment after taking on this task from the division commander, the thought of so many people hating him behind his back still made him uneasy. Take this confrontation for example. One major reason they were able to succeed repeatedly was that it was not Gu Xiong commanding, but Qin Feng. His aggressive tactics were known for their boldness, which was in stark contrast to Qin Feng's more subtle approach. As long as the other side mistakenly believed they were being commanded by him, they could easily fall into a trap, stepping into one pitfall after another. This was also why Gu Xiong resolutely asked Qin Feng to take the lead. On one hand, it was because he was smart and adaptable. On the other hand, it can create an element of surprise. The second squad fell for this. And so did the fourth and eighth squads. Gu Xiong guessed that those guys must be cursing their ancestors behind their backs. Some tactics, he felt, were too cunning. Even for himself. He sighed helplessly in his heart. It turns out that as the squad leader, he was meant to attract fire and take the blame. However, such minor issues were not worth mentioning at the moment. The most important thing was how to win the match smoothly. Something felt off. It seemed like the opposing side was beginning to fortify their defenses. Through the night vision scope, Gu Xiong noticed them piling up soil and stones to build makeshift defenses. These rudimentary fortifications would be useless against heavy firepower. But this time, only light weapons were involved, and they were laser-guided. So, as long as they could shield their bodies, it would be sufficient. Commander, they seem to be on guard. What should we do next? Qin Feng had long accepted this teasing from the squad leader. From the recruit squad to helping him pursue girls, and now to the current competition, his role was akin to the Team S strategist, right? Of course, this strategist was also strong and could pack a punch when it came to fighting. Next step. Wait. For what? Gu Xiong was puzzled. Qin Feng looked at him and explained, this time, I'm actually playing a straightforward hand. Anyone with a bit of tactical understanding could guess that our daytime harassment was preparing for a night raid. But it's only 9 at night now, and there are still 8 or 9 hours until dawn. We decide when to strike and when to attack. Gu Xiong immediately understood, realizing that even if the other side knew what they were planning, they wouldn't have the capability to stop it. After all, in terms of individual combat, those guys were definitely not as good as their squad. It was impossible for them to split up and be picked off one by one. Huddling together and hiding in their fortifications would put them in a passive position. Regardless, both the 7th and 11th squads were in a disadvantageous situation. So when will our next attack be? An hour from now, Qin Feng replied with a smile. After that, we'll launch a raid every hour, just to scare them, make some noise, and keep them on edge without giving them a chance to rest. A crafty smile immediately appeared on Gu Xiong's face. That's quite cunning. I like it. Rustle. The wind wanted to calm down, but it wouldn't. A dark cloud floated overhead, quickly covering the moon. Su Tiankai crouched behind the cover, looked up at the sky, and felt a sinking feeling in his heart. It was a dark and windy night, a night for killing. Originally, visibility at night was limited. Now that the moon was obscured, the situation became even worse. At that moment, the 7th squad leader suddenly whispered a warning. They're coming. Su Tiankai cautiously peeked out, and indeed saw shadowy figures moving in the farthest trees. He raised his weapon, aimed it outside, and quietly instructed his scattered troops. Pass the word, stay alert. Unfortunately, no one paid him any mind. Everyone knew this guy had been demoted to the kitchen unit. Moreover, according to people from the 4th company, he wasn't even allowed to cook in the kitchen, only doing odd jobs. He was essentially a surplus personnel forcibly placed in logistics. How could someone like that possibly follow orders? Su Tiankai, who received no response, felt a burning sensation on his face, as if he had been slapped. Although he was not well liked, the orders from the other 2 company commanders were still effective. One command after another was passed down, and everyone in the position was on high alert. Although they knew it was likely another feint, they had to stay fully prepared. Because you never know when the real attack might come. Bang bang bang. The sharp sound of gunfire suddenly erupted. In the forest, faint flashes of light flickered from time to time. That was the weak glow produced when exercise grenades exploded. 5 minutes later, the battle ended, and the tide of attackers receded. The casualties on both sides could almost be described as negligible. This kind of battle lasted until 1 in the morning, with a total of 4 waves. Everyone was exhausted, suffering immensely, and even felt like banging their heads against the ground. I found a pattern. Su Tiankai exclaimed excitedly as he looked at his little genius watch. They launch an attack every hour. So what? The 2 company commanders looked at him as if he were a fool. So we can deduce when their next attack will be. Su Tiankai was still pleased with his discovery, but the expressions of the 2 company commanders darkened. They were ready to kill him. What good is knowing when their next attack is? Do you think they'll give you a heads up if they actually come? They pointed out. And look at our soldiers. What state are they in now? Su Tiankai turned his head to take a glance, and his expression instantly turned sour, as if he had just eaten something unpleasant. About 200 people inside and outside the position looked pale, their spirits low, with bags under their eyes almost dragging on the ground. They were all yawning, looking like drug addicts without any makeup. Su Tiankai even noticed 2 guys lying on the ground, guns in hand, their eyes wide open. But they were already snoring lightly between breaths. At this point, everyone's physical and mental state had reached the extreme limit. Although they had implemented a rotating rest schedule during the day to get fragmented sleep, it was hard for their bodies and brains to truly rest under constant harassment. The soldiers needed a break. Otherwise, if there were 2 more rounds, even I wouldn't be able to hold on. Old 7, don't you think so? Old 7. Old 7. The commander of the 11th Company turned around and found that the commander of the 7th Company had not reacted at all. After nudging him a couple of times, the 7th Company commander finally seemed to reboot. Sorry, I dozed off without realizing it. Both the 7th and 11th Company commanders had also reached their limits. The 2 of them could only use the band-aids from the first aid kit to force their eyelids open. Although it looks quite comical and funny, it doesn't serve much purpose. Soldiers on guard duty, who wouldn't doze off with their eyes open. Let us take turns to rest. I estimate that at least the last 2 attacks were just feints. The time when people are most fatigued and least alert is generally around 4 in the morning. There is still some time left, so you should rest up. I'll call you if anything happens. Under Su Tiankai's thorough analysis, the 2 company commanders reluctantly compromised in the end. They agreed to let everyone take turns resting every half hour to the best of their ability, to replenish sleep and recover strength. Just when they thought the opponent had finally figured out the pattern and they could relax a bit, Qin Feng was perched like an owl on a tree branch in the distance, capturing the scene through his binoculars. He slid down from the tree, returned the binoculars to Gu Xiong, and said with a smile, "Company commander, from now on, let us launch an attack every 10 to 20 minutes." Gu Xiong responded with a cheerful okay gesture. Everyone has had enough sleep during the day. Now we're all full of energy. Even if we attack every 5 minutes, it's no problem. Qin Feng nodded. After 3 o'clock, they'll be pretty worn out. That's when we'll launch our main attack and catch them off guard. Chapter 176. The wolf is coming. The wolf is coming. I want to cry. It's unbearable. My head feels like it's about to explode. This is the most genuine thought of all the soldiers on the battlefield at this moment. Since dark, they've lost count of how many times the Steel Knife Company has harassed them. From 9 o'clock in the evening to 1 in the morning, there was an attack every hour. After 1 o'clock, it was almost every half hour. Each time, they charged in. And just as it looked like a fight was about to break out, they immediately retreated. This left everyone in the 7th and 11th Companies exhausted and miserable, with many wishing they could just die. Now, many couldn't even hold their rifles steady, as the barrels swayed and their arms felt weak. Drowsiness was overwhelming, and their eyelids felt like they were weighed down with 1,000 pounds. Even Su Tiankai's head bobbed up and down like a bean. Suddenly, his head bumped against a rock with a thud. The pain made him clutch his head, and he sucked in a breath, temporarily shaking off some of the drowsiness. He first peeked out from the fortification, glanced at the distance, and confirmed there was nothing unusual before sighing in relief. But when Su Tiankai turned back to look at the people beside him, he was directly dumbfounded. In the position, including the 2 company commanders, nearly half of the soldiers had their eyelids closed. Although they still maintained a defensive posture and held their rifles, it was clear they had just fallen asleep, with 2 even drooling. Wake up! Wake up! You can't sleep! You can't sleep! The enemy might attack at any moment. Wake up! Su Tiankai pushed the 7th Company commander beside him vigorously. The 7th Company commander opened his eyes slightly, glanced at him with bloodshot eyes, then ignored him and closed his eyes again. Su Tiankai, helpless, turned to push the 11th Company commander, only to receive the same result. The 2 people had completely disregarded him, no longer believing a single word he said. Previously, it was this guy who claimed to have found a rule and urged everyone to take a break. But as soon as he finished speaking, he was met with harsh reality. Although they knew this couldn't entirely be blamed on him, it was just that the other party was too cunning and didn't play by the rules. However, it was hard to forget that he often spoke without thinking, and his words were as untrustworthy as empty promises. Therefore, whatever he said now was met with skepticism. Seeing that the 2 were ignoring him and continuing to rest with their eyes closed, he rubbed his head, feeling both anxious and angry. He had a bad feeling that if things continued like this, the next wave of action from the other side would be serious. He pinched his thigh hard to keep himself alert, cursing the other party's cleverness in his mind. This was the first time he had seen through the other party's plan, yet felt utterly powerless. The move was too ruthless, leaving no room for defense. Just then, a rustling sound suddenly came from the forest ahead. Due to extreme fatigue, his reactions had become quite sluggish. He belatedly grabbed his binoculars and noticed shadows rapidly approaching. Strangely, the opposing team wasn't making noise like before to intimidate them. Instead, they split into 3 formations and were stealthily charging from the left, middle, and right. Seeing this situation, he felt his scalp tingle. He knew they were serious this time. Enemy attack. Everyone get ready, he shouted, but at that moment, Qin Feng and the others instantly dropped to the ground, completely still. Under the cover of night and the grass, they wore camouflage and blended into the environment. At this moment, The soldiers from the two squads were almost too exhausted to keep their eyes open. They hazily scanned their surroundings, seeing only darkness and nothing unusual. Although some sensed something was off, they were unsure if it was just their imagination. After all, their leaders hadn't said anything yet. If they were mistaken, it would be embarrassing. Thus, the majority relaxed their vigilance upon seeing nothing out of the ordinary, maintaining a half-alert, half-drowsy state. Seeing that everyone was ignoring his warnings, he was almost frantic. No matter how much he shouted or explained, the leaders next to him offered no response. The tale of the boy who cried wolf was familiar to everyone. When someone tells too many lies or unreliable statements, they lose all trust. At that moment, he had become that child shouting about the wolf. To his surprise, the other side didn't react at all. A look of joy spread across the face of the cunning individual. Previously, when Qin Feng proposed this idea, he was quite worried. If the enemy discovered it and immediately launched a counterattack, it would be troublesome. However, he never expected that the long-term high-frequency harassment had already numbed the nerves and senses of the opposing side. Even without the strong support of Su Tiankai, this plan could actually work. Go! Qin Feng crouched on the ground and waved his hand forward. The three teams on the left, middle, and right immediately sprang up and, like phantoms, accelerated forward again. 200 meters, 150 meters, 50 meters. Within a 50-meter range, these makeshift cover spots were almost useless. Gu Xiong saw targets exposed in his field of vision, like spotting beautiful women in bikinis on the beach, his face filled with a mischievous grin. He raised his dark gun barrel and, without a word, shot towards the crowded area. The sudden gunfire startled the people in the position. Many, who had just looked up, suddenly realized that the Steel Blade team had somehow charged right in front of them. How could they have appeared so quickly when they had just closed their eyes a second ago? Could these guys teleport? Counterattack, quickly counterattack. The leaders of the 7th and 11th companies were also awakened at this moment. They continuously organized the people around them to launch a counteroffensive. But the position had already been breached, and organizing a defense at this time was somewhat too late. Gu Xiong led the left and right teams, like two incredibly sharp blades, fiercely cutting into the fortifications. While utilizing various cover to maneuver, they were also slaughtering the enemy like a meat grinder. Watching Gu Xiong, who was becoming bolder and bolder, charging down like a steel blade, Qin Feng even felt a sense of unfamiliarity. Because this was the first time he had truly seen the company commander personally leading the team and commanding the operation. He never expected that the usually quirky commander would be so fierce in battle. In ancient times, he would have overshadowed Zhao Zilong. No wonder their company was chosen by the division commander for such an important task. With such a brave commander, how could the soldiers under him be weak? Of course, what Qin Feng admired most was that the commander could switch effortlessly between being a sycophant and a fierce warrior, which was indeed impressive. Bang bang bang. Qin Feng raised his hand and fired a burst of bullets, taking out several enemies ahead. He then ordered the team following him to break into smaller units and engage in free combat. At such times, it was a chaotic brawl. As long as they adapted to the terrain and took down the opponents, it was fine. Simply put, they could even use bricks to smash them. There weren't too many rules. Meanwhile, not far away in a thicket, Su Tiankai, who was hiding, heard that voice that made him grit his teeth in anger. He never dreamed that the guy could last until now. Could he even be issuing commands to the team? Could it just be a voice that sounded similar? To verify his suspicion, Su Tiankai peered out quietly, and the next second, he tightly clenched his fists in anger. It was him, it was definitely him. Even if he were covered in camouflage paint, he would recognize him anywhere. He is now in this predicament, all thanks to him. Su Tiankai pulled out a grenade from his pocket, excitement shining in his eyes as he pulled the pin. Qin Feng, this time no one will save you, you're doomed. Absolutely doomed. Chapter 177. Victory belongs to each and every one of us. I'll blow you to bits, you turtle bastard. Su Tiankai cursed inwardly as he prepared to throw the grenade at Qin Feng. Just then, a sudden whoosh of wind caught his attention. Instinctively turning around, he was met with a blow to the face from a rifle but wielded by Wu Jin, who had appeared out of nowhere. With a thud, Su Tiankai spun like a little top, doing a full 360-degree turn before crashing to the ground. When he finally managed to lift his head and regain his senses from the daze, he was shocked to find that the grenade had slipped from his grasp and fallen nearby. Oh no, Su Tiankai thought in terror, wanting to escape. But the sound of an explosion engulfed him. Watching Wu Jin rush past him, he caught a glimpse of the unfortunate soul in the grass who had just been blown up. Qin Feng chuckled and teased, "Class representative, have you played golf before?" Wu Jin laughed heartily. "What golf? I've only swung a hoe. Just a small fry, not worth mentioning. Haha." The two completely ignored the guy behind them, not even knowing who he was, and continued charging forward. A small fry? How dare he call me a small fry? Su Tiankai covered his cheek and got up from the ground. Compared to the physical pain, the blow to his pride was even more devastating. I recited Tang poems at 3, learned poetry and painting at 5, and I was a model student, an outstanding class leader from a young age. I got into a military academy in college, ranking among the top in my class, regarded as an excellent officer representative by teachers and classmates. How could I possibly be a small fry? I am a staff officer, a regiment staff officer. Su Tiankai pounded the ground with his fists, crying uncontrollably. His heart shattered into pieces. Why does he always fall into Qin Feng's hands? Every single time. He is my nemesis, my absolute nemesis. Su Tiansai's wails went unheard amidst the ongoing fierce battle. Even though Ge Zhiyong was personally leading the charge, the resistance from the 7th Company was equally fierce. Soldiers have the blood and spirit of warriors. They were fighting for their respective units, and to protect their honor, even when their bodies reached their limits. At the critical moment, the soldiers of the 7th and 11th Companies still pushed their limits. The company commanders fought until their eyes were bloodshot. In order to halt Ge Zhiyong's ironclad advance and to minimize casualties, they resolutely charged out from their cover toward him, pulling the honor flares on their chests. To be honest, even Qin Feng was shocked at this scene. He could hardly tell whether this was a competition or a true life-and-death battle. The sky gradually revealed a hint of dawn. The water vapor in the air condensed on the branches and leaves, forming white frost. The woods on the back mountain were quiet, with no gunfire echoing anymore. In this battle, the Steel Blade Company fought until only 6 people remained. The company commander, Ge Zhiyong, 3 squad leaders, and all the team leaders had fallen. The 7th Company, 11th Company, and the remaining scattered troops were all completely wiped out. This time, the Steel Blade Company barely secured a victory. Qin Feng led the only 5 survivors out of the woods on the back mountain. What greeted them was a golden dawn, symbolizing victory. Shielding his eyes from the blinding sun, Qin Feng emerged like a web-addicted youth who had pulled 2 all-nighters from an internet cafe. A joyful yet exhausted smile appeared on his face. He was so tired. Even he, who had been somewhat inactive, felt like he was about to reach his limit. Fortunately, he had been passively recharging his energy, so he didn't need to be supported like the other 5. As Qin Feng's pace slowed slightly, his gaze swept over the fallen comrades beside him, and his heart stirred with emotion. Personal ability is always insignificant in the face of a collective. Even if one has an advantage, it is still difficult to influence the outcome of a battle, especially in situations where the disparity between enemies and allies is vast. Winning a battle is incredibly challenging. In order to gain an advantage and achieve victory, Qin Feng could be said to have racked his brain, not knowing how many brain cells had died in the process. Yet in the end, the outcome was still so tragic. With the Steel Blade Company left with only 5 brothers, it's easy to imagine the painful price the predecessors had to pay when facing enemy aircraft and artillery, lacking clothing, food, and with rudimentary equipment, just to achieve a victory. What's on your mind, Commander Qin? Ge Zhiyong noticed he seemed a bit distracted, so he smiled and patted him on the back. Nothing, just suddenly feeling that war is more brutal than I imagined, Qin Feng said with a bitter smile. Before joining the military, he always thought the term war was far away. Even when seeing news of conflicts in certain regions, he didn't pay much attention. But after experiencing it firsthand, he realized that war indeed causes death, and many people die. Ge Zhiyong smiled knowingly at Qin Feng's complex feelings. It was at this moment that he felt the young man resembled a rookie. He recalled having similar feelings during his first real combat exercise, especially when witnessing comrades around him erupting in white smoke, signifying their fall. The complex and uncomfortable emotions made it hard to distinguish whether this was real combat or just an exercise. In that moment, one might feel the magazine was not filled with blanks, but with real bullets capable of taking lives. Everyone goes through a period of adaptation. Ge Zhiyong patted him again. You've experienced real combat and know how terrifying and tough the enemy can be. Because of this, our country and people need our protection even more. Qin Feng nodded in acknowledgement, not saying much more. Some things still need to be digested slowly, allowing time to adapt. Just as Qin Feng was lost in thought, a hearty laugh approached from afar. The instructor, Gua Haitao, hurriedly ran over in quick steps from a distance. Ge Zhiyong couldn't help but smile at the sight of his old partner rushing to congratulate him, instinctively opening his arms. However, the next moment, Gua Haitao threw his arms around Qin Feng, instead, grinning widely. Ha ha ha, good kid. You really didn't let us down. You truly are the treasure of our Steel Knife Company and the future pillar of the troops. Qin Feng glanced at Ge Zhiyong, who was left standing aside. His face flushed from the praise. Instructor, this is everyone's achievement. Without the unity of the whole company, we wouldn't have won. Besides, in the last annihilation battle, it was mainly the company commander's credit. I was just a bystander. Gua Haitao chuckled and released him, then playfully punched Ge Zhiyong. No need for us to flatter each other. After so many years in military school and leading troops, if you couldn't perform well now, those years as company commander would have gone to waste. Ge Zhiyong scoffed, pursing his lips but saying nothing. A short while later, all participants in the competition gathered next to the shooting range. The fallen soldiers had been collected at the regiment headquarters and had not returned to their old unit. Since the competition had ended, the commander still needed to give a debriefing. However, at this moment, everyone in the 402nd Regiment, from the regiment commander to the chief of staff, the political commissar, and the frontline soldiers, looked as wilted as frostbitten eggplants. On one hand, they were disheartened from losing the competition, and on the other hand, they were exhausted from the grueling battle. In contrast, the entire Steel Knife Company stood tall and proud, their faces beaming with joy. At ease. Attention. Right face. Forward look. After a few simple commands, the formation quickly became orderly. Qin Feng noticed the current state of Commander Lu Chong. He didn't seem as lively as when he first arrived and showed signs of fatigue in his eyes. It seemed that 2 days of observing the battle had drained quite a bit of his energy. However, compared to many elderly villagers outside, he still looked much better. Lu Chong scanned the crowd and spoke with vigor. I know that after 2 days and nights of tactical exercises, you are all very tired and eager to rest and eat. So, I will keep it brief. He continued, first, I announced the results of the competition. The winner is the Steel Knife Company. The scene fell silent. And Gu Zhiyong and the others did not let victory get to their heads. Military discipline is ingrained in them, and even in joyful moments like this, they kept their excitement contained. However, Qin Feng noticed that the corners of everyone's mouths were slightly upturned. Lu Chong smiled and nodded at Gu Zhiyong, expressing affirmation and encouragement, and continued, in this battle, despite being at a significant disadvantage in numbers, the Steel Knife Company was able to flexibly employ various tactics and achieve such good results, which is truly commendable. We simulated a situation of encountering the enemy behind their lines, encirclement and counter-encirclement, so even if they ended up with only one survivor, they could still successfully relay crucial intelligence. The transmission of this intelligence is likely to bring our side a tremendous victory in the battle. As soon as the words were spoken, Lu Chong turned his gaze toward Qiu Guohai, his face showing not a hint of a smile. At that moment, everyone felt a chill run down their spines, nervously swallowing hard. Chapter 178. Qin Feng, you are so bold. Lu Chong's gaze swept across the faces of everyone from the border defense unit, finally landing on the commander, Qiu Guohai. Qiu Guohai, step forward. Qiu Guohai dared not delay and quickly took a step out. Lu Chong looked at him coldly. This confrontation exercise has exposed many issues. As the commander, you should understand this better than I do. Now, I want you to personally provide your evaluation. Cold sweat dripped from Qiu Guohai's forehead. This was essentially a self-critique, and it felt harsh. However, military orders are like mountains, and he dared not disobey. Thus, Qiu Guohai turned around, directing his criticism at the 5 companies. After 2 whole days of battle, you have truly opened my eyes. He glared at the 2nd Company commander, scolding loudly. 2nd Company. Your lack of vigilance and complacency led to the enemy's surprise attack, right as the battle began. Like a soft persimmon. You were squeezed so many times without daring to fight back? I ask you, is it that without armored vehicles and tanks, you completely lose your combat capability and cannot fight at all? The 2nd Company commander felt utterly humiliated, and the soldiers under him also lowered their heads. Their over-reliance on mechanized equipment was a common flaw, leaving them without a sense of security once they stepped away from their armored shells. Although Qi Ming had just been assigned to the 2nd Company, he too felt an immense sense of shame. He remembered when he was in basic training, relying on his physical advantage and feeling quite self-satisfied, thinking that having practiced martial arts would make him thrive in the military. However, he quickly learned a lesson upon joining the company, taught by his most respected squad leader, Qin Feng. Qi Ming felt wronged. Qin Feng, I considered you a brother, but you treat me like a KPI to fulfill. After finishing with the 2nd Company, Qiu Guohai angrily turned his attention to the 4th and 8th Companies. 4th and 8th Companies. Your eagerness for achievements and arrogance led to you not only shooting yourselves in the foot, but also causing such heavy losses for the team. If you had coordinated with others to complete the encirclement at that time, this battle would have ended long ago. Exactly. The remaining 2 company commanders silently cheered in their hearts. If Wu Jian had reported the information to them earlier, the battle would have been over on the first night, and they wouldn't be facing this criticism. Qiu Guohai glanced at the Steel Blade Company, continuing to criticize them for their failure. The plan from the Steel Blade Company was riddled with flaws. In this modern age of advanced communication technology, simply coordinating between both sides could have completely avoided this situation. But what happened? Not only did you fall into the trap, but you also ended up with friendly fire, an absurd and laughable scenario. The commanders of the 4th and 8th Companies were filled with shame, unable to meet the eyes of their commander. At that time, the 2 were indeed briefly kept in the dark, but looking back, even they found it quite ridiculous. This isn't the era of fighting against invaders when communication technology was underdeveloped. How could such a blunder happen? It was precisely because of the defeat in this battle that laid the foundation for the later victory of the Steel Knife Company. Gu Xiong glanced over at Wu Jian, feeling quite pleased with himself. Fortunately, he heeded Qin Feng's advice to pull back at the last moment. Otherwise, the Steel Knife Company might have already lost. However, he never imagined that a competition could turn into such a convoluted affair. The fourth and eighth companies faced the harshest criticism. This confrontation would not only become a disgrace in their military careers, but they also had to bear the primary responsibility for losing the match. The two company commanders could not dispute and were willing to accept punishment. Finally, Qiu Guohai directed his gaze towards the 7th and 11th companies. The 7th and 11th companies had rigid tactics and weak individual combat abilities. With nearly 300 personnel, they couldn't even take down 5 soldiers from the opposing side. From day to night, they were constantly harassed in various ways by the enemy, and yet they had no means to counter it. Fortunately, the competition lasted only 2 days. If it were to last a week, the opposing side wouldn't even need to launch a final assault. Just by dragging it out like this, they could wear you out. I genuinely doubt whether you all have been engaged in tactical training or even practicing your physical fitness. All the soldiers from the 7th and 11th companies hung their heads low. Previous battles had mostly been straightforward. They had never experienced this kind of irritating attack. They never expected that just 5 people from the opposing side could throw over 200 of them into disarray. But what the commanders of the 7th and 11th companies resented the most was that scoundrel Su Tiankai. If it weren't for this guy's nonsensical suggestions, they wouldn't have been led around by the nose by the opposing side. Feeling the angry glares directed at him, Su Tiankai shrank his neck in guilt, but didn't think he had done anything wrong. I just offered some opinions. Who told you not to have any judgment of your own? Besides, I'm just a cook. Why should I care about the outcome of the competition? After Qiu Guohai finished reprimanding everyone, LV Chong took the floor again. Since you 5 companies were selected to participate in the competition, it indicates that you should be among the better ones in the Border Defense Regiment. Yet, your performance in battle has left me very dissatisfied. The 402nd Border Defense Regiment was once a formidable unit with countless achievements during wartime. Why has it now become like this? Is it that life has gotten better, leading to laziness, and your beliefs and convictions have been worn away by time? Or are you all just here to pass the time, enlisting just to earn some retirement pay? The commander's voice was like a whip, striking everyone in the Border Defense Regiment. Each person felt the commander's anger. But more so, they felt disappointment and frustration. Qin Feng knew that the commander had once come from the Border Defense Regiment, so he hoped more than anyone else to see this unit improve. However, what he received in the end was repeated disappointment, which was hard for anyone to bear. If the Border Defense Regiment could be compared to a patient, then the Steel Blade Company was like a scalpel. With one cut, all the diseased organs and tumors within the patient were exposed. These issues would gradually lead this once highly accomplished old unit to the abyss. I have given you many opportunities, but you didn't cherish them. Don't blame me for being ruthless as your commander, Lu Chong said sharply. Looking at Qiu Guohai and the regiment's political commissar, Ji Mingyuan, turn back, and aside from those originally scheduled to retire in spring, give me a new list of 100 people. He continued, if you can't endure the hardships of the military, then go suffer in society. The military is not a retirement home, and the Border Defense Regiment is not a welfare institution. If you just want to coast along, I advise you to reconsider. Yes. Qiu Guohai and Ji Mingyuan responded with grim faces. This statement shocked everyone present. It meant that in addition to those voluntarily retiring, they would also have to forcibly discharge another 100 people. Now, everyone was in a panic, especially those who had performed poorly in the competition. Although the Border Defense Regiment was weak, the welfare benefits and salary standards were actually quite good. They all worried about being discharged from the unit and did not want to enter society so soon. Lu Chong continued sternly, let me tell you. Don't think that just because this confrontation is over, everything is fine. There will be similar real combat drills frequently in the future. Each time you lose, I will cut your funding and remove a group of people until you improve and achieve good results in next year's military competition. At this moment, everyone in the Border Defense Regiment, including Qiu Guohai, wore expressions as if they had eaten a dead fly. They initially thought such humiliation would only happen once. But it turned out this was just the beginning. After the commander's speech, Qiu Guohai left the team in a dejected manner. Among the crowd, Li Jiajian and Qi Ming felt lost, almost turning back 3 times as they walked. Upon seeing the spirited arrivals, they realized just how vast the gap was between regular units and elite forces. How to become stronger, to be as strong as Qin Feng, had planted a seed in their hearts. Gu Xiong watched the dejected figures leave and felt a bit uneasy. Although he understood that the commander was doing this for the sake of the Border Defense Regiment, to motivate them to improve and shed excess weight, ultimately enhancing the unit's overall strength, he still felt some lingering attachment since the Steel Blade Company was a part of the regiment. Qin Feng also felt a bit guilty towards Li Jiajian and the others, but he didn't carry the same psychological burden as the company commander. After all, He had just joined the unit for a short time, and his feelings for the Border Defense Regiment were not yet deep. Moreover, he could also see various issues that the Border Defense Regiment was currently facing. If strong measures were not taken to push them to improve, this unit would inevitably face disbandment. This approach not only tempers the Border Defense Regiment and forces them to enhance their capabilities, but it also indirectly raises the combat readiness of the Steel Knife Company. It can be said that this is a completely win-win situation. After the personnel from the Border Defense Regiment left, Lu Cheng turned his attention to Gu Zhiyong. First, let's disband. Let everyone take a break. Commander, come here. Yes. Gu Zhiyong immediately issued the disbandment order to the team and quickly ran to report to the division commander. Lu Cheng looked him up and down. Who told you to come here? Gu Zhiyong was taken aback. Commander, didn't you say for the commander to come? This match. You are the one leading the team, right? Lu Cheng rolled his eyes. Go and call that recruit named Qin Feng. Gu Zhiyong suddenly realized. Oh, so you already know? Lu Cheng glared at him. Of course, I'm not so old that I can't see clearly. Gu Zhiyong awkwardly smiled and quickly called Qin Feng over. Hello, Commander. Qin Feng hurriedly came forward to salute. Lu Cheng assessed him and then snorted coldly. Qin Feng, you really have some nerve, don't you? Chapter 179. To be a guard for the commander or to stay as a squad leader. Qin Feng, as a recruit. You should honestly fulfill your duties and do what you are supposed to do. Lu Cheng's tone was filled with pressure. Who gave you the authority? Who gave you the courage to think you can lead a unit of over 100 people into battle? Seeing the commander was about to hold him accountable, Gu Zhiyong panicked. Commander, it's me. Shut up, I'm asking him, not you. Faced with such a powerful commander, Qin Feng did not show any signs of fear. Commander, if you think I have overstepped, then punish me. I don't think I've done anything wrong. Nor do I believe that being a recruit means I should be looked down upon. Gu Zhiyong was almost scared to death. Why was he still arguing at this time? Just say it was me who gave you the authority and shift the responsibility onto me. The commander would at most criticize you a bit. Wouldn't he really blame you? Lu Cheng sneered. You have quite a hard mouth, huh? Qin Feng looked at him with neither humility nor arrogance. It's not a hard mouth, but I'm in the right. What do you mean by that? Are you subtly mocking the commander for being unreasonable and looking for trouble? Gu Zhiyong was almost frantic. Even if the old man was looking for trouble, you shouldn't say it out loud. But he is the commander, the commander. Lu Cheng's face darkened, and he was silent for a while. Although the surroundings were quite spacious, Gu Zhiyong could still feel the atmosphere gradually becoming tense. He poked Qin Feng's back, hoping this guy could say something softer to give the commander a way out. But Qin Feng remained unmoved, even daring to stare directly into the commander's eyes. After a while, Lu Cheng suddenly burst into laughter. Ha ha ha. Good for you to be in the right. Cannot be subdued, with a strong backbone. Just like the soldiers of the Steel Knife Company, Qin Feng remained silent, his expression unchanged throughout. On the contrary, Gu Zhiyong was left perplexed. He glanced at his superior and then at Qin Feng, unsure whether to smile along or stay silent. Lu Cheng scrutinized Qin Feng from head to toe, smiling as he asked, I'm curious, why didn't you say it was your company commander who delegated authority to you when I asked you just now? If you just tell the truth, you could easily distance yourself from this, and no one would blame you. Qin Feng replied, if one person can handle the situation, why drag the company commander down with me? Besides, I believe you wouldn't punish a new recruit for such a minor issue. In other words, if we had lost this battle, you might have been furious and found this arrangement absurd, but we won, and we did it quite impressively. Lu Cheng's smile remained, and he seemed even more interested in Qin Feng. You're right, I didn't plan to punish you. I just wanted to see if you could handle a scare. It doesn't matter who commands a battle, as long as it ends in victory. Everything else is secondary. Having realized that the commander was just trying to intimidate them, Gu Zhiyong was about to relax, but the commander's next words made his heart race again. Although you're just a new recruit, your abilities are much greater than those of an average veteran. I happen to need a quick-witted young man by my side. How about coming to the headquarters to be my guard? Commander, didn't you promise to give Qin Feng to me? Why are you? Gu Zhiyong immediately became anxious. I changed my mind, is that a problem? Lu Cheng glanced at him, seemingly unbothered. Am I not allowed to transfer a soldier without consulting you? Commander, I didn't mean that. What I meant was, shut your mouth. I'm asking Qin Feng now, not you. Gu Zhiyong was left speechless, only able to look at Qin Feng with wide eyes. Lu Cheng gently coaxed, Qin Feng, you should know what it means to be a guard beside a leader, right? It's like being a secretary to the leader, the experiences you gain, the opportunities you encounter, and the speed of promotion are far superior to other positions. If you want to develop better in the army and get exposure to higher levels sooner, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I'm sorry, Commander, but I just want to stay in the Steelblade Company and not go anywhere else. Qin Feng firmly refused. I'm just an ordinary new recruit. I should fulfill my duties and do what I'm supposed to do, not chase unrealistic dreams. Moreover, I feel my abilities are limited, so it's better to take steady steps. Lu Chong's smile instantly froze. He didn't expect this young man to give up such a great opportunity without even considering it. Not only that, but he also had the audacity to use the commander's earlier words against him. No wonder he dared to take credit in front of the division commander at the commendation meeting. This kid had guts like a bear and the courage of a leopard since he was young. Lu Chong didn't press the issue. Fine, if you don't want to, then forget it. After all, it seems that your presence in the Steel Knife Company can be more beneficial. Yes, Commander. I'm currently training him as a key member of the company. Otherwise, I wouldn't dare give him so much power. Gu Xiong immediately interjected, emphasizing Qin Feng's importance. He was afraid the commander might insist on taking Qin Feng as his personal guard. This time, Lu Chong did not deny Gu Xiong's words. Instead, he nodded in agreement, which was unusual for him. A significant part of the reason the Border Defense Regiment lost this time is that everyone thought it was you, Gu Xiong, leading the troops. Qin Feng's approach is completely opposite to yours, which is why everyone keeps falling into traps and getting led around in circles. However, while this tactic may work once, it won't succeed a second time. He looked at Qin Feng. Qin Feng, I used to think that your achievements of first and second class merit during your time in the new recruits company were largely coincidental. But now I believe that there is more inevitability to it. You truly have a talent for leading troops and a keen insight into people's minds. Receiving the commander's praise made Qin Feng quite happy. However, this happiness did not last long, as Lu Chong poured cold water on him. But when it comes to commanding group operations and charging into battle, you still fall short compared to Gu Xiong. The greatest taboo for a person is pride and complacency. There is still much for you to learn, and a long road ahead. The Steel Knife Company is a very special unit. In the era of firearms, many people neglect to develop themselves, overly relying on advanced weapons and equipment. Therefore, I hope you can stay true to your original intentions and continue to rigorously train the Border Defense Regiment to enhance your own strength. Yes, Commander. Qin Feng and Gu Xiong stood tall. Lu Chong looked at Gu Xiong. Later, I will allocate some funding from the Border Defense Regiment to you as a reward. Next year's major competition in the regiment, I require the Border Defense Regiment to shake off its weakest label and reach the middle ranks. If you can achieve this, there will be additional rewards. If not, the Steel Knife Company will have to face penalties alongside the Border Defense Regiment. Understood. All right, I'm tired now. I'll take my leave. Before leaving, Lu Chong patted Qin Feng on the shoulder. You performed well in the competition. I'll award you a third-class merit later. Keep up the good work. I hope to see your growth and more outstanding performances. Thank you, Commander. Qin Feng was overjoyed. He never expected that participating in a competition could lead to a third-class merit. With this, he had all 3 class merits. What a grand slam. Watching the Commander South vehicle gradually drive away, Gu Xiong clapped Qin Feng on the shoulder, unable to help but exclaim, "You're something else. You've been in the army for less than 6 months and have achieved more than I have as a company commander. Maybe I should just follow you from now on." "Commander, aren't you already following me now?" Qin Feng chuckled. "If it weren't for my advice, you'd still be behind the others." "Damn, you've got some nerve joking about the company commander. That's outright rebellion." Gu Xiong, fuming with anger, lashed out with a kick. But Qin Feng dodged it with a laugh, nearly causing the older man to throw out his back. The two chased each other around the firing range, roughhousing like a pair of kids. By the transport vehicle, Hua Haitao, Tang Lei, Wu Jin, and others drank water and munched on biscuits, smiling at the scene. "What the hell are you all standing around for? Grab him, everyone get him." Panting and out of breath from the chase, Gu Xiong couldn't catch Qin Feng and had to call for backup. Coming. Commander, you're not up to it, huh?" Seeing the whole group closing in on him with mischievous grins, Qin Feng was stunned. Seriously cheating like this? That's just too sneaky. Count off. 1, 2, 3, 4. Steel Blade Company assembled and ready for instructions. In front of the barracks, the platoon leader reported to Gu Xiong, who then called for the company to stand at ease. "Since we're all here for evening roll call, I'll keep it brief. Qin Feng, step forward." "Yes, sir." Qin Feng left the ranks and stood beside the company commander. Gu Xiong patted him on the shoulder and said with a smile, "This guy probably needs no introduction, right?" Everyone laughed. Without Qin Feng's quick wits and resourcefulness, they wouldn't have repeatedly overcome dangers or achieved such smooth victories. Gu Xiong announced loudly, "In this competition, Qin Feng performed exceptionally and played an indispensable role in our victory. Therefore, I've decided to appoint him as squad leader of the 6th Squad. Any objections?" "None." Everyone shouted in unison, the members of the 6th Squad, including Wu Jin, yelling especially loudly. Though still a new soldier, Qin Feng had demonstrated more than enough capability and courage to lead a squad. Gu Xiong turned to Qin Feng and asked with a smile, "Qin Feng, it's your turn now. Do you have the confidence to do well as squad leader of the 6th Squad?" "Yes, sir." Watching Qin Feng's confident, loud response, Zhao Pengfei's face broke into an unreserved smile. Though he had left the combat squad, with Qin Feng in charge, He had nothing to worry about. Excellent. Gu Xiong had Qin Feng return to the ranks, then said cheerfully, to celebrate our victory and Qin Feng's promotion to squad leader. Everyone will gear up and run 10 kilometers to lighten the mood, followed by 4 sets of obstacle courses. How does that sound? Like hell. Everyone cursed inwardly. Chapter 180. Thanks to Qin Feng, the Border Regiment becomes the division's benchmark at the division headquarters. In the comprehensive meeting room, officers of various ranks sat with worried expressions, whispering among themselves. Soon, the door opened, and everyone immediately fell silent and stood up. Good morning, superiors. Division Commander Lu Chong and the political commissar entered with notebooks. Lu Chong gestured for everyone to sit and quickly scanned the room. Everyone here? All officers sat straight-backed, hands on their knees, awaiting the division commander's address. Without preamble, Lu Chong got straight to the point. This meeting will cover 2 matters. First, regarding the optimization and streamlining of personnel, our division has performed rather poorly. Yesterday, I attended a meeting at the military base, where the commander criticized our 33rd Division for our progress. Now, I want to ask everyone, is it that my orders were not conveyed clearly, or is it that your abilities are indeed limited, making it impossible to complete this task? His gaze grew colder, and his tone carried a chill. If it's my problem, I will reflect on it, but if it's your own issue, should I consider replacing you with someone more capable? The commander's words left everyone present in silence, each feeling uneasy. Yet, even so, no one spoke up. Seeing no one responding, the commander coldly smiled and turned his gaze to the leader of the 705th Regiment sitting on his left. The named commander, Wang Xinghe, was startled and quickly stood up. The commander toyed with a pen in his hand, his gaze fixated on him like a knife. You 705th Regiment are the best unit in our division, but why is this task completed the worst? The higher-ups require each regiment to optimize by at least 20%. And a month has passed, yet you haven't even reached 10%? Is it that you, as the commander, lack the ability? Or are you deliberately opposing me, going against the orders from above? Although Commander Wang felt a bit guilty, he stood tall and replied, Report to the commander. Our 705th Regiment has been diligently executing the orders from above. However, the 20% optimization target is indeed very difficult for us to achieve. Although we are a field unit, we don't have many heavy weapons and rely mainly on personnel. If we really optimize out so many people, our overall strength will be significantly weakened. Moreover, all the soldiers in our regiment are elite, each trained at great cost, so don't tell me about this. The commander raised his hand to interrupt him and said sternly, If every regiment were like your 705th, then the higher-ups shouldn't bother with large-scale troop reductions. The 20% optimization target is a mandatory task that must be completed. Since the 705th Regiment is our division's strongest unit, you should set a good example. I will give you one last week. You must submit the remaining list to me. If you still fail to complete the task by then, I will relieve you of your position and let someone else take over. At that point, I will assign the task to others. Hearing this, Commander Wang looked as if he had eaten something unpleasant. He had thought that, given the status of the 705th Regiment in the division, there would be some leniency. But unexpectedly, the commander showed no mercy in this matter. The commander's gaze scanned the faces of everyone present, finally landing on a square-faced man. Before he could speak, the square-faced man, sweating profusely, quickly stood up. Report to the commander, please give me one more week. We 432nd Regiment will definitely complete the task. With this person taking the lead, gradually, at least half of the people present stood up to express their commitment. They all stated that they would do their utmost to complete the orders from above and fulfill the optimization task. The commander raised an eyebrow and exchanged a glance with the deputy beside him. At this moment, the commander stood up, somewhat helplessly addressing everyone. All right, everyone sit down, please. I know that you all have strong objections to this order. Not just you, but every soldier in our division is dear to me. The commander said sternly. However, I hope you can understand that the purpose of optimizing is to enhance the combat effectiveness of our troops. He turned to look at the square-faced regiment leader from earlier. Take your 432nd Regiment, for example. A batch of new tanks will be sent next summer, replacing the old equipment. Operating the old tanks requires 4 people, while the new ones only need 3. What will we do with the extra personnel? The military is meant for combat, and as times progress and weaponry advances, if we want to strengthen our capabilities, we must streamline our personnel. Lu Chong, however, did not share his calm demeanor. Instead, he scoffed and said sternly, What era are we in now? It's an age of explosive growth in science and technology. In information technology, look outside. Many factories have started using robotic arms to replace manual labor, and many supermarkets have automated checkouts. If we do not keep up, how can we protect our citizens? How can we talk about strengthening our nation and military? Everyone present remained silent, their faces serious. They understood the reasoning. But the thought of losing so many personnel was hard for anyone to bear, especially for those diligent veterans in the army. Perhaps it was just due to a lack of education, perhaps due to their age, or perhaps a slight weakness in some area. Facing forced retirement was an enormous blow. Old Wang, the commander, said as he left his seat and approached the leader of the 705th Regiment, patting his shoulder. While we can understand your feelings, obeying orders is the duty of a soldier. I hope you can overcome this difficulty. As long as you get through this painful period, then. Chief, you don't need to say more. Regiment leader Wang clenched his fists and said with difficulty, word by word. In 1 week, I will definitely submit the list. And I will complete the task. Good. The commander encouraged him with a pat, then turned his gaze to the others, with the 705th Regiment leading by example. Even if others had grievances, they had no choice but to comply. A 20 personnel optimization meant cutting down 2 companies' worth of soldiers. For them, it felt almost like cutting into flesh. Seeing the atmosphere was somewhat gloomy, Lu Chong called someone out. Xiao Guohai. Yes. Tell everyone how much of your optimization target has been completed. Xiao Guohai's face looked grim, but he steeled himself and said, report to the commander. We have completed 30. And it will reach 35 in a week. The scene erupted in shock, everyone gazing at Xiao Guohai in disbelief. No one could believe that the 402nd Border Defense Regiment had actively reduced so many personnel. It is important to note that this unit was already considered relatively weak within the division. Losing so many people at once, would they still have combat effectiveness? Don't be so weak that you crumble like tofu. Did you see that? Lu Chong praised loudly. In this matter, all of you need to follow the Border Defense Regiment's example. Why can they accomplish it so decisively while you all are dragging your feet? Xiao Guohai was thoroughly praised by the commander during the meeting and received high recognition. Although he was supposed to be the benchmark for the entire division, Xiao Guohai couldn't feel happy at all. Over the past month, he had nearly been beaten down by the Steel Knife Company. Every time they lost, the Border Defense Regiment not only had to lose some personnel, but also had to cut funding. Now, Xiao Guohai was almost driven to despair, waking up every day to curse Qin Feng twice. He knew it was that guy, Qin Feng, who was leading the charge against them. Moreover, his methods had become increasingly ruthless, and the blows had grown fiercer each time. Despite the Border Defense Regiment's strength improving significantly in just a month, Xiao Guohai still felt intense resentment. If he had known back when they were in the recruit company, he would have suffocated Qin Feng in the honor room. Next, I want to talk about a second matter that is crucial and will directly affect the future development of all units. So listen carefully. Seeing the commander's extremely serious expression, everyone, including Xiao Guohai, couldn't help but feel tense, their eyes fixed on the commander's lips. Chapter 181. Just promoted to squad leader. And now about to be promoted to platoon leader so soon? Run faster. Steel Knife Company, training ground. Zhao Pengfei was carrying a heavy backpack with a gun slung around his neck, running in circles. His face was pale, sweat continuously dripping down his cheeks, each drop hitting the rubber track. At that moment, he resembled an emotionless machine, mechanically repeating the action of running forward. Behind him, Qin Feng occasionally lashed the strap against his backpack, making a loud cracking sound. Faster, faster. Are you running or strolling? At this speed, Shinsachi could carry a pig on his head and 2 bags of rice and still outrun you. Do you still want to go back to the combat team? Do you still want to leave logistics? I do. Zhao Pengfei seemed to be stung by the words, gritting his teeth and shouting. Qin Feng showed no emotion on his face. If you want it, then run. Give it your all. One last lap. I want a 100-meter sprint. Zhao Pengfei was cursing internally, thinking back to half an hour ago when Qin Feng had said it was the last lap. Can't you learn something good? I used to pull this on you when I was in the recruit company, and now you've learned it all. With a snap, the strap whipped against Zhao Pengfei's backside, making him yelp in pain and dash forward as if his backside were on fire. Qin Feng didn't let up, closely following him and giving him no chance to slow down. He was a very qualified drill instructor. Not far away, the members of Class 6, just coming out of the cafeteria, couldn't help but smile at the sight. Over the past month, Qin Feng had been using his spare time to help Zhao Pengfei with recovery training. Currently, Zhao Pengfei can not only easily run 3 kilometers, but he can also manage to finish 5 kilometers with determination. It is precisely due to the strict training regimen imposed by Qin Feng that he has been able to recover so quickly. At this rate, in 1 or 2 months at most, Zhao Pengfei will be back to about 70 or 80% of his former level. By then, he can apply to leave the logistics unit and return to the combat team to train with everyone. At this moment, Niu Taijun suddenly thought of something. Old Wu, can I ask you something? Wu Jin turned to look at him. What is up? Niu Taijun stroked his chin, looking curious. When old Zhao comes back, who will be the squad leader in our team? It can't be that we have 2 squad leaders, right? Wu Jin was also taken aback by this question. Indeed, Qin Feng is currently filling in for Zhao Pengfei's position. However, over the past month, Qin Feng has performed exceptionally well, even better than Zhao Pengfei did before. His leadership in constantly training the border defense unit and helping the company earn funds cannot be overlooked. But if Zhao Pengfei returns from logistics, who will actually take on the role of squad leader? How about we make a bet? Niu Taijun said with a grin. Bet on what? Wu Jin asked. Let us bet on who will be the squad leader when Zhao returns. You little rascal, are you a bit unsure? I bet a pack of Hongtou Mountain that Zhao Pengfei will be the squad leader and Qin Feng will be the deputy. Count me in. I'll raise the stakes with a pack of Li Kun, betting that Qin Feng will be the squad leader and Zhao Pengfei the deputy. 2 packs of braised beef noodles. I think they will take turns being the squad leader, 1 week each. The new recruits in the 6th squad were all chiming in, with various guesses. Even members from other squads came over to join in the fun. Life in the army can be dull and monotonous, so finding some amusement is quite nice. Just as everyone was discussing, a quiet voice suddenly came through. What if, when Zhao Pengfei comes back, Qin Feng has already become the platoon leader? Everyone turned their heads in unison, staring wide-eyed at Lu Xiaoguang, who had come closer. Niu Taijun pondered deeply. Lu Xiaoguang, your hypothesis is quite bold. Lu Xiaoguang chuckled nervously. With how powerful Feng Gu is now and his high prestige in the company, I think it's not impossible, right? The crowd exchanged glances, feeling that it made some sense. Immediately, a few people started betting that when Zhao Pengfei returns to the combat team, Qin Feng will definitely be promoted to platoon leader. Although everyone was just joking around, the speaker may not have meant it, but the listeners took it to heart. Lu Yong, the 2nd platoon leader just coming out of the cafeteria, looked as stiff as wax. If it were someone else, he might have said, a rookie wants to be a platoon leader? Wake up from that dream. But when it comes to Qin Feng, it's entirely possible. In less than half a year since joining the army, he has achieved 1st, 2nd, and 3rd class merits, and even earned an honorary title. In just under a month, he led the Steel Knife Company to repeatedly outperform the Border Defense Unit, not only improving everyone's combat skills, but also earning significant funds for the company. It can be said that now, apart from the company commander, Qin Feng holds the highest prestige in the entire Steel Knife Company. With Qin Feng's abilities and level, it wouldn't be impossible for him to be promoted to a platoon leader. But if Qin Feng becomes a platoon leader, where would that leave me? Just as Lu Yong was lost in thought, a military vehicle suddenly stopped beside him. The window rolled down, and Gu Zhiyong shouted at him. Immediately gather all the squad and platoon leaders to the battalion's reading room for a meeting, especially call Qin Feng. I have important matters to announce. Oh, and also bring Zhao Pengfei. He must be present. Hearing this, Lu Yong almost cried out of frustration. Could it be that they were announcing appointments so soon? If Qin Feng becomes the 2nd platoon leader, what would I do? Would they send me to logistics as a quartermaster? I'm talking to you, did you hear me? Yes, I'll notify them right away. Lu Yong could only respond reluctantly. But he thought to himself, if they really sent him to logistics, he would add extra seasoning to the battalion leader's meals every day, making him eat disgusting combinations. 10 minutes later, all the key personnel of the Steel Knife Company arrived at the reading room. It's worth mentioning that although Qin Feng was a squad leader, he sat at the front, right next to instructor Guo Haitao. As Zhao Pengfei arrived late, sweating profusely, Gu Zhiyong asked with concern, how has training been lately? Can you handle it? Zhao Pengfei found a spot to sit down and grinned. The heavy load 5 kilometers feels like a game. Hearing this, everyone in the room smiled. If Zhao Pengfei could return to the combat team, the Steel Knife Company would gain additional combat power. After all, everyone was well aware of his strength. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been assigned to lead a new recruits team. Gu Zhiyong turned to Qin Feng and reminded him, Qin Feng, you need to put more effort into Zhao's rehabilitation training. It would be best if he could reach optimal condition within half a month. Qin Feng nodded with a smile. Don't worry, battalion leader. He is my old squad leader, and I'll definitely take it more seriously than anyone else. But you just mentioned half a month. Do we have any upcoming tasks? That's right. Gu Zhiyong looked seriously at everyone. I just returned from a meeting at the division headquarters. The all-army competition originally scheduled for after the new year has been moved up. By how much? In 20 days. Upon hearing this news, everyone began to discuss among themselves. Generally, once decisions are made in the military, they rarely change. This time, moving it up by more than a month was indeed a bit hard to comprehend. Qin Feng asked in confusion, why is it suddenly moved up by so much? Gu Zhiyong replied seriously, this is also the key point I want to discuss. To respond to the increasingly complex and changing international situation, the higher-ups have decided to begin preparing for a troop rotation. Troop rotation? That's right. Gu Zhiyong nodded. In a month, we will have to relocate, although the specific destination is still unclear. But what we do know is that the higher-ups plan to use this competition for a performance evaluation of all units. In short, the teams that perform the best in the competition will be prioritized for allocation to the best barracks and facilities, and will also receive better resource distribution. He chuckled and said, if we can achieve good results, we won't have to keep squeezing the limited resources from that border unit. Upon hearing this, everyone's eyes lit up. Among them, Qin Feng was the most excited. As the strategist of the team, he always had to rack his brains to squeeze resources from the border unit. However, Since the border unit was the weakest in the whole division, its budget was very limited, and there wasn't much to squeeze. It seemed to decrease every time, which made Qin Feng quite unhappy. It was as if he had already exhausted the resources of the border unit, and they hardly yielded any rewards anymore. But this upcoming competition was a great opportunity. If handled well, it could lead to significant improvements. Seeing everyone eager and excited, Gu Zhiyong smiled and deliberately kept them in suspense. After the meeting, the division commander kept me behind and made a request. He said that if our steel knife company could take first place in the competition, he had an additional reward for us. Can you guess what the reward is? Chapter 182. What does a soldier need to worry about commanding officers? Expansion. Hearing these two words from Gu Zhiyong's mouth, everyone's spirits lifted. It is known that, under normal circumstances, the structure of a unit is fixed. This means that the number of personnel the unit can accommodate is also fixed. However, if expansion is possible, the situation changes. Transitioning from a company to a battalion allows for more personnel and naturally strengthens the unit's capabilities. As a result, the Steel Knife Company would rise in status within the division and the military, and everyone's treatment would improve as well. The enthusiastic response from the crowd was expected by Gu Zhiyong. Soldiers have a strong sense of belonging and collective honor. Who wouldn't want their unit to thrive? When the unit's future looks bright, it reflects positively on everyone. The division commander also said that as long as we achieve good results, not only can we expand from a company to a battalion, but everyone's salaries and benefits will also increase. Although it may seem a bit materialistic, we all have families, and one day we will take off our uniforms and become civilians. Therefore, I hope that in the next 20 days, everyone will give it their all, not just to secure the best barracks during the transfer, not just for the better development and future of the Steel Knife Company, but for yourselves as well. I ask you, do you have confidence in achieving good results in the competition? Yes. Everyone responded confidently, eager to make a mark. After the meeting, as others dispersed, Gu Zhiyong kept Qin Feng behind. They each lit a cigarette, completely devoid of any sense of hierarchy, resembling two good partners or brothers. What are your thoughts? Gu Zhiyong exhaled a puff of smoke and turned to look at him. Something feels off, Qin Feng casually remarked, which piqued Gu Zhiyong's curiosity. What feels off? The transfer. Qin Feng furrowed his brows slightly, feeling that it was a bit too sudden and rushed. He thought to himself that he was overthinking things. Gu Zhiyong smiled and waved his hand, saying, "You don't need to worry about these big-picture matters. There are considerations from above. We're just ordinary soldiers. So let's focus on what's in front of us." Qin Feng nodded and didn't delve deeper into the topic. After all, he was just a rookie and perhaps thinking too much. What right did a conscript have to think like a commander? It was better to reach that level and position before worrying about such things. Let us talk about something serious, Gu Zhiyong asked earnestly. Can you give me an update on Zhao Pengfei? How is his recovery? Will he be able to return to the combat team in half a month? In fact, Zhao Pengfei could already return to the combat team. Qin Feng's words shocked Gu Zhiyong, who then jumped up in anger. Why the hell didn't you say so earlier? You didn't ask before. Qin Feng replied innocently, which made Gu Zhiyong want to slap him. Back when they were in basic training, Zhao Pengfei had been secretive with him. Now, Qin Feng was doing the same. It seemed he really was cut from the same cloth as Zhao Pengfei. However, Qin Feng continued, but the squad leader wants to wait a bit longer. He wants to recover to his best condition before returning to the combat team. That's good. That's good. Gu Zhiyong felt relieved. If Zhao Pengfei can come back, our chances will increase significantly. His combat skills rank among the best in the regiment, and having him around will stabilize our position. When the time comes, you and he will participate together and try to take down the others. No problem. Qin Feng smiled and gave an okay gesture. He was quite experienced in dealing with such matters. But then Gu Zhiyong's expression turned serious as he looked at Qin Feng. Due to the change of barracks and resource allocation, this competition will definitely be more intense than before. Given our current strength, it's certainly possible to make it to the top 10, but winning first place might be challenging. Do you have any ideas on how we can improve our overall level in such a short time? Qin Feng's eyes twitched. Squad leader, do you think I'm Doraemon? We only have 20 days. I'm not a magician. What can I do? Gu Zhiyong laughed and put his arm around Qin Feng's shoulder. Though you're just an ordinary person, you're as good as half a deity. I believe this small matter won't stump you. Hurry and think of something. If we can achieve good results in the competition, I'll promote you to squad leader. Upon hearing this, Qin Feng couldn't suppress a smile. Although he had just been promoted to squad leader a month ago, managing a team of 10 was indeed a bit unsatisfying. Power can be quite addictive. Once you can manage 10 people, you want to manage 30. If you can manage 30, you want to manage 100. So, Qin Feng still wanted to try being a platoon leader. However, he didn't show his delight, but pretended to look troubled. Squad leader, isn't this a bit inappropriate? I'm just a rookie, and I've only recently been promoted to squad leader. It's really unfair to others. Well, I shouldn't say it like that. You're not like the other new recruits. Gu Zhiyong waved his hand seriously and said, You're now in our unit, and your reputation is almost catching up with mine. Even if you really become a squad leader, no one would dare to disagree. Qin Feng hesitated and asked, then what will happen to squad leader Liu if I become the squad leader? Gu Xiong laughed and said, so that's what you're worried about? You don't need to worry about that. By then, Zhao Pengfei will return to the combat class, and that position of logistics chief will be vacant, right? Liu Yang's slow nature makes him perfect for managing accounts and organizing things in logistics. Qin Feng smiled shyly. Since you, the company commander, say so, it would be a bit inappropriate for me to refuse again, right? Definitely. Gu Xiong patted his thigh. Anyway, this task is assigned to you, and you have to come up with a solution for me. You can handle it however you want. Just ensure that we improve our strength and achieve a good ranking in the competition. All right. I'll think about it and let you know as soon as I have a solution. Make it quick. Time is running out. Got it. Gu Xiong cheerfully saw Qin Feng out, and on his way back, he ran into Gua Haitao, who had just come out of the office. Finished chatting? What did Qin Feng say? He said he'll think of a solution and get back to me soon. Old Gu, I'm not saying this to criticize you, but your brain seems to be deteriorating. Gu Xiong tilted his head, looking at him suspiciously. What do you mean my brain is deteriorating? Gua Haitao shook his head, looking displeased. This kind of thing should be considered by you as the company commander. You're facing a tricky problem, and without thinking, you just pass it on to Qin Feng. From the new recruit company until now, even if Qin Feng were a magic lamp, you'd still squeeze him dry. If you keep using your brain like this, it will really rust. Come on. Gu Xiong looked at him with annoyance. Have you ever seen a big boss who can write code and negotiate with clients? As long as I have capable people under me, it's fine. Do I have to do everything myself as the company commander? Besides, I'm training Qin Feng and giving him a chance to gain experience and help him progress. I told him that as long as he can help us win first place in the competition, I would promote him to squad leader. Gua Haitao rolled his eyes sarcastically. Why don't you say you'll promote him to company commander? Gu Xiong looked annoyed. That's enough. If you keep undermining me, next time I'll promote him to instructor and let you lead the troops. Gua Haitao laughed. What kind of daydream are you having? We're at the same level. How could you command me? He suddenly slapped his forehead and remembered something. Oh right, I almost forgot the important matter. Qiu Guohai just called and said he wants to treat us to dinner. Are you going? Not a chance. Gu Xiong looked at him like he was silly. It's a trap. How could we come back if we go? When I went to the division headquarters for a meeting this morning, his eyes practically wanted to bite a piece of flesh off me. How many times have we clashed with his defense regiment this month? How many people have we made leave? How much funding did you earn from him? Have you forgotten? Gua Haitao awkwardly forced a smile and said, that may be true, but didn't we also indirectly help them strengthen their capabilities? I've heard that he made quite an impression at the morning meeting in the headquarters. He asked the benchmark for the whole unit. Gu Xiong shrugged and was too lazy to explain further. Just tell him that I'm busy lately. After the competition is over and if our team gets good results, I'll host a banquet for them. All right. After leaving the company office, Qin Feng didn't return to the dormitory. Instead, he sat on a stone bench behind the cafeteria, pondering solutions to the problem. Beside him, Chun Sanchi was slurping milk and munching on an apple, staring at him like a background character, providing quiet company. In just a month, the kid had visibly gained weight, looking quite well fed. With only 20 days left, how could they rapidly enhance their capabilities? Snap. The previous methods definitely wouldn't work now. A new approach was needed. Slurp. Without pressure, training lacked motivation. How could he apply pressure on everyone? Snap, slurp. The continuous crunching of the apple mixed with Chun Sanchi's milk-drinking sounds interrupted Qin Feng's thoughts, causing the veins on his temples to throb. Finally, he couldn't hold back any longer. Just as he was about to speak, Chun Sanchi surprisingly blurted out, Brother Feng, are you unhappy? Huh? Qin Feng stared blankly at Chun Sanchi. What makes you think I'm unhappy? Chun Sanchi furrowed his brows into a frown, his eyebrows raised, mimicking Qin Feng's earlier expression. Then why are your eyebrows like that? They look like two seesaws. Looking at Chun Sanchi's round face combined with the silly expression, Qin Feng couldn't help but laugh. I'm not unhappy. I'm just thinking about a problem and can't come up with a solution at the moment. Then tell me about it. Maybe I can help you think of something. Chun Sanchi put down his apple and milk, looking eager to assist. Having received care from Qin Feng since joining the army, he also wanted to contribute. Though Chun Sanchi wasn't the quickest thinker, having more people meant more ideas. So Qin Feng casually explained the problem he was facing. We need to achieve good results in the competition. Only then can our unit be prioritized for the best barracks and funding during the transfer. There are only 20 days left, and the company commander hopes I can come up with a plan to significantly improve our unit's performance in a short time. Chun Sanchi frowned, resting his chin on his hand, listening intently like a kindergarten kid listening to a story, nodding occasionally. Seeing him so serious was rare. So Qin Feng asked with a smile, So, Chef Chun, do you have any ideas on how to solve this? Just give me some suggestions or thoughts to broaden my perspective. Chen Sanchi put his hands down and said seriously, I only have one question. Go ahead. What exactly does transfer of defense mean? Qin Feng almost toppled off the stone bench. After all this time, this guy still didn't understand what changing posts meant? I really overestimated him. All that's on his mind is food. Although Qin Feng rolled his eyes in annoyance, he patiently explained it again. Simply put, it means to transfer from one area to another, such as moving troops from guarding the desert to the plateau, from the plateau to the plains, and from the plains to the forests. As for where exactly they would be transferred, it was still unclear, but according to the company commander, the place we are heading to is full of challenges. The purpose of the transfer is twofold. On one hand, it's to respond to the complex and changing international situation, making it hard for opponents to see through us. On the other hand, it prevents the troops from becoming complacent and too comfortable, thereby indirectly enhancing combat effectiveness. He looked at Chen Sanchi's round face and said with a smile, just like you, eating so well in the cooking team. Living too comfortably means you need to be sent to the combat team to train more and experience some hardship. Chen Sanchi felt a bit embarrassed and secretly touched his face, muttering to himself that he hadn't gained much weight. Brother Feng, can't we use that method from last time? If everyone doesn't train well, we won't feed them. Let them go 3 days with just one meal. And then I'll munch on chicken legs and pig trotters in front of them? Qin Feng shook his head. Using the same trick once is fine. But doing it again won't work. Everyone already has a mental preset, and we can't really let them starve. Chen Sanchi suggested. Then can we find them some opponents or get a drill instructor or something? Qin Feng paused, feeling like he had caught on to something. I thought about that too. But the border defense regiment has already been overwhelmed by us. Unless we take on an entire regiment at once, it won't have much effect. Besides, they're busy training right now, so they wouldn't have time for us. Is there really no one else besides the border defense regiment? Chen Sanchi picked up the milk box again, moving the straw back and forth inside, trying to get the last bit out. But after trying for a while, he still couldn't find the right position, and the straw made a slurping noise again. Watching him struggle, Qin Feng's eyes suddenly lit up. He suddenly stood up and slapped Chen Sanchi on the arm. I've got a plan. Haha, your brain does have some use after all. So I'll reward you by asking you to buy me 2 bottles of milk and take me back to the dorm later. After saying that, Qin Feng dashed off towards the company commander's direction. Watching him excitedly leave, Chen Sanchi, with the straw in his mouth, scratched his head in confusion. Clearly, Qin Feng's last statement carried a lot of information, and he couldn't immediately process who was treating whom. Commander, are you in there? Qin Feng knocked on the office door of the company commander, but there was no response from inside. Instead, the door of the adjacent resource room opened, and the instructor, wearing glasses and carrying a stack of documents, walked out. Qin Feng, are you looking for the commander? Yes, it's urgent. Qin Feng asked eagerly, Instructor, do you know where the company commander went? Gua Haitao came over to open the company commander's office door and found that Gu Xiong was not inside. He looked around in confusion and casually said, he probably went to the restroom. He wanted Qin Feng to wait in the office, but unexpectedly, Qin Feng headed straight for the restroom. At that moment, Gu Xiong was in the restroom, smoking a cigarette while typing quickly on the keyboard, clearly enjoying his chat. When he saw Qin Feng burst in, he was momentarily taken aback, even interrupting his business. Qin Feng, what brings you here? Commander, I've thought of a solution. Did you come up with an idea so quickly? Gu Xiong's face broke into a smile, momentarily forgetting his earlier business. He hastily wiped himself, pulled up his pants, and stood up without washing his hands, leading Qin Feng back to the office while asking what the solution was. Qin Feng quickly shared his idea. However, when Gu Xiong heard it, it felt like his brain had frozen and needed a reboot. He pointed at Qin Feng and shook his head as if he were constipated. Qin Feng, I thought you would come up with something substantial, but you just gave me a big pile of nonsense. What about that elite unit? They are a special operations team, a direct combat unit under the command. Do you think you can just invite them to help with a few flattering words? Commander, you've misunderstood. Qin Feng tried to explain, but was interrupted. What have I misunderstood? What do you think I misunderstood? Gu Xiong lit another cigarette, impatiently slamming the lighter on the table. Aren't you just saying you want to spend money to hire a few special forces to train us for the last few days? Commander, you didn't understand my point, and I wasn't planning to pay at all. Are you kidding me? You want to get something for nothing? Gu Xiong's eyes widened in disbelief. Qin Feng didn't deny it but smiled as he explained, Commander, strictly speaking, this doesn't count as getting something for nothing. You think not paying means it's not getting something for nothing? Not paying, but we can offer something in return. Offer something? Gu Xiong was getting more confused. He rubbed his head and temporarily halted Qin Feng. Wait a minute, let me sort this out. You said we need a strong opponent to create pressure and motivation to improve, right? Yes. Qin Feng nodded. Then you said the special forces should have good strength, and you want to find someone from that elite team to help us, right? Exactly. Then let me ask you, why would such a large organization, with no ties to us, agree to take time out of their busy schedule to help us? Moreover, it would be voluntary labor? Seeing Gu Zhiyong's puzzled expression, Qin Feng chuckled. Commander, you made a mistake. We actually do have some connections with them. As long as you and Zhu Huihui take that step, won't we become relatives? At that point, we could. What? Gu Zhiyong slammed the table and jumped up. Are you suggesting that I sacrifice my looks and play the pretty boy card? No way, absolutely not. A real man born between heaven and earth cannot stoop to such despicable acts. Squad leader, Qin Feng said with a serious expression and tone. For the future of our steel knife company, what's wrong with you sacrificing a bit of your charm? Besides, you two are already quite fond of each other. What's the harm in speeding up your development? Moreover, no one is asking you to engage in anything immoral. It's just about inviting Zhu Huihui to dinner, shopping, and watching a movie. I heard she was promoted to Deputy Director of the Information Warfare Center last week. If she agrees, wouldn't that make things much simpler? Gu Zhiyong fell silent for a long time, as if caught in a tremendous struggle. But in the end, he was persuaded by Qin Feng. He lifted his head and let out a deep sigh. Ah, it's all for the Steel Knife Company. It's all for the Steel Knife Company. Qin Feng firmly grasped his hand. Go ahead and unleash your charm. Chapter 184. The squad leader is much tougher than Zhao Pengfei in a certain district. Inside a detention center, Shaka, with a shaved head and dressed in a blue prison uniform, was sitting in a corner of the cafeteria, using a soft spoon to eat from his bowl. The conditions in the detention center were not good. Usually, only on major holidays could they have something decent to eat. Today just happened to be New Year's Day, and the inmates could finally enjoy a better meal. The so-called improved meal was just a bowl of porridge with instant noodles and 2 pieces of tough chicken breast that were hard to swallow. Shaka kept his head low, almost burying it in the bowl. He scooped the mixture of noodles and porridge into his mouth, his gaze somewhat vacant, seemingly lost in thought. At that moment, he suddenly noticed a pair of large feet underneath the table. Shaka slowly raised his head to see a burly man with a fierce face, looking intimidating. What do you want? Shaka instinctively protected his bowl. Although the food tasted like slop, he was indeed very hungry. The muscular man grinned, revealing 2 rows of yellowed teeth stained by cigarette smoke, and cruelly said, Someone outside is paying for your life. I'm here to send you on your way. With that, the burly man pulled out a screwdriver and began stabbing Shaka's abdomen repeatedly. The surrounding guards rushed over to intervene and subdued the man. However, Shaka was already screaming on the ground, blood gushing from his abdomen, quickly pooling into a red puddle. What? Internal injuries? He needs a blood transfusion and rescue? In the police station office, Chui Gongyi stood up, slamming the table. How could this happen? Where did the weapon come from? Why was it in that inmate's possession? And why did he attack Shaka so brutally? Faced with a barrage of questions, the prison warden was sweating profusely. Leader, we are not clear about what exactly happened. The inmate has been in for over a month now, and there have been no issues during this time. He has been isolated, and the matter regarding the screwdriver is under investigation, with results expected soon. Shaka is severely injured. Our medical staff cannot perform emergency treatment and can only transfer him to the nearest hospital. This should not affect the execution of the death penalty after the new year. Chui Gongyi gripped the phone tightly, his expression grim. What kind of person would go to such lengths against someone already sentenced to death? He said sternly. Send more people to follow him. Even after he reaches the hospital, do not let your guard down. This situation seems too strange. We must prevent any unexpected incidents. Understood. After the call ended, a cloud of gloom hung over Chui Gongyi's face. Out of humanitarian concerns, even death row inmates are entitled to medical treatment when they fall ill. This means that even if Shaka is scheduled for execution after the new year, they must make every effort to save him if something goes wrong now. Although it seems a bit absurd, that is the regulation. However, years of experience told Chui Gongyi that this incident was anything but coincidental. Therefore, he had reason to suspect that this was likely a deliberate arrangement by someone. The detention center is heavily secured, making it nearly impossible to get someone out. But in a hospital, where there are many people and distractions, the chances of success are much higher. Realizing this, Chui Gongyi's expression changed, and he immediately got up and headed outside while summoning a large number of police forces. By 9 o'clock in the evening, police cars were parked inside and outside the city hospital. Numerous officers were blocking various entrances and exits, verifying and screening people entering and leaving the hospital. In a distant residential building, a thin, dark-skinned man was holding a pair of binoculars. He was chewing on bread while reporting something over the phone. Boss, Shaka has been severely injured and taken to the hospital for emergency treatment, but there are a lot of police around. Don't worry about them. Just focus on monitoring. Came the calm and pleasant voice from the other end. My brother may be foolish most of the time, but he has some cleverness too. I've created an opportunity for him. Whether he can escape this web of traps depends on his fortune. If he can seize this chance, you can carry out the next phase of the plan. If he can't make it out, then so be it. Understood, boss. I'll continue monitoring and report any developments. The thin man hung up and resumed observing the situation at the distant hospital. Have you spotted any suspicious individuals? No findings. What is Shaka's current condition? He was sent in time. The doctor said he is temporarily out of danger, but due to excessive blood loss. It may take a few days for him to regain consciousness. The young officer responsible for the report felt increasingly frustrated and finally couldn't hold back. Boss, this Shaka is a damn drug dealer. I've heard that several border soldiers have died at his hands. For scum like him, dying 100 times would be too lenient. And since he is set for execution after the new year, why are we going to such lengths to save him? How about this? I'll go in and disconnect his oxygen tube, quietly and without a trace. That way, we can save 2 tubes of the injection medication, said the young officer. Chui Gongyi shot him a glare, and the young officer quickly realized he had said the wrong thing and shut his mouth. Although the outcome would be the same, the process had to be reasonable and legal. That was the bottom line. As a member of the JW team, he had to follow the law and regulations. The young officer reluctantly agreed, but in his heart, he still felt that it was absurd to go to such lengths to save a death row inmate. Chui Gongyi glanced around, his expression stern as he said, "Everyone stay alert. Just because tonight is fine doesn't mean tomorrow or the day after will be the same. You all will be in plain clothes, lurking in the hospital. If you notice anything unusual, report it to me immediately." Understood. Chui Gongyi got back into the police car, his face still cold as frost. No matter whether this incident was coincidental or not, he could not allow any accidents to happen. At this moment, he had set a trap, and if there were any desperate criminals, he would catch them all. At 10 o'clock at night, the Steel Knife Company announced lights out over the intercom. However, there was not a single person in the dormitory building. Everyone was at the training ground, busy with vigorous training. Some were practicing individual combat tactics, lunging, rolling, low crawling, and high crawling, all in one go. Others were in the equipment area, doing repeated training on parallel bars, and after that, they had to complete 2 more sets of physical training. Meanwhile, Qin Feng was leading all members of the 6th squad in practicing knife strikes on the basketball court. The Steel Knife Company had to practice their knife techniques. The set of knife skills they were practicing was called 8 cuts to break the blade, divided into 8 moves. Each move was sharp and decisive, targeting the enemy's vital points. It had been specifically designed years ago to counter the stabbing techniques of enemy forces. However, over the years, some moves had been slightly modified. The techniques had become sharper, with increased lethality, making it relatively easy to take down an opponent. Stop! Everyone stop! Qin Feng yelled at Wu Jin and the others, dissatisfied. We're practicing the 8 cuts to break the blade, not the 8 shots of tetanus. Can we bring a bit of intensity? Like me, put some power into it. Bring some killing intent. As he spoke, he gripped his knife with both hands and struck fiercely in the air. Each move was filled with ferocity, as if he was trying to split the air before him. At that moment, Niu Taijun said in a low voice, "Squad leader, we also want to practice well. But we've been at it all day. We really don't have the strength left. How about we skip this and run 3 kilometers to wrap things up, and then head back to sleep?" "Yeah, that is a good idea. Let us rest up and fight again tomorrow." Seeing his teammates trying to take a shortcut, Wu Jin felt a bit awkward in the middle. In fact, everyone had indeed exceeded their training quota today. It was already 10 at night, and everyone was tired, their mental state not as good as during the day. Practicing knife techniques at this time would definitely not yield the same impressive momentum as in the daytime. Without momentum, practicing would be pointless. Fine then. Seeing them like this, Qin Feng realized that no matter how much they practiced, they wouldn't achieve anything remarkable. So he compromised. 30 kilometers it is, and after running, we'll go back and sleep. Wait. Everyone in Class 6 widened their eyes in horror. "Captain, it's 3 kilometers, not 30. Did you mishear?" "What?" Qin Feng seemed deaf. "Light load isn't enough. Must be heavy load? Seriously, what kind of ears do you have? Are you trying to mess with us?" Niu Taijun hurriedly pretended to wave a big knife, smiling as he said, "Captain, actually, I think practicing the breaking wind 8 blades is great. I suddenly feel motivated. Yes, I feel the energy too. I feel like I'm possessed by Nia Feng, holding the blood drink mad blade. I feel like I'm possessed by Bu Jingyun. These 2 arms like Qilin are getting a bit restless." Too late. Qin Feng was not having any of it. 30 kilometers is 30 kilometers. Run it and sleep. Hurry up. After saying that, he gathered the team and ordered everyone to hit the road immediately. The leading Wu Jin smiled wryly, shaking his head. This captain was much tougher than the previous one. If it were Zhao Pengfei, he would have just increased 3 kilometers to 5. But with Qin Feng, it was a direct 10-fold increase, with no room for negotiation. This guy couldn't just be called tough. He was practically a beast. However, while the others were running, Qin Feng wasn't idle either. The steel knife in his hand was slicing through the air with a whoosh, every move filled with killing intent. At the same time, he hummed a tune softly, and one could faintly hear a line of lyrics. "The big knife strikes at the heads of the enemies. Qin Feng, come here. Hurry up. Qin Feng turned his head and noticed a sneaky shadow under a nearby tree calling out to him. From the voice, it sounded like the platoon leader. But the tone seemed a bit off. He sheathed the steel knife and walked over with a smile. Platoon leader, how is it going? Did Zhu Huihui agree? I thought you wouldn't be back tonight. Didn't he expect you? But as he got closer and saw the platoon leader's appearance, Qin Feng's smile instantly froze, his eyes wide open like light bulbs. Please, everyone, give a little push for updates and some free gifts. The little black room has been closed for several days, and the data has dropped to a terrible state. Now I'm counting on everyone's support to survive. Sob sob sob. Chapter 185. Love can weaken one's will and diminish fighting spirit. Platoon leader, what happened to you? As he approached, Qin Feng was shocked to find that the platoon leader, Ge Zhiyong, was not wearing a hat. His hair was a mess. There were 2 scratch marks on his right cheek, his lips were red as if smeared with lipstick, and he looked very dejected. Initially, Qin Feng thought the platoon leader had been robbed, but when he saw the small red spots on his neck, he immediately understood everything. Platoon leader, you guys wouldn't. No, don't get me wrong. We are innocent, very innocent. Ge Zhiyong quickly tightened his collar, nervously buttoning up his uniform to cover the small red spots inside. Qin Feng's smile was filled with mischief. Platoon leader, at your age, still picking strawberries. Quite the player, huh? Caught off guard, Ge Zhiyong's face immediately turned red, and he quickly changed the subject. Don't mess with me. I'm just a guy in my 30s. For our sake, I almost sacrificed my dignity this time. Qin Feng couldn't help but laugh. What do you mean, almost sacrificed? If you said you were assaulted, some people would actually believe it. He could even imagine Zhu Huihui pulling Ge Zhiyong's hair, slapping him twice, and then forcefully pinning him to the seat, chewing on him. If she were a bit gentler, Ge Zhiyong wouldn't have ended up looking like a sausage. It seems she truly was a fierce woman. So, what did you gain from this? What did Deputy Director Zhu say? How many people can Lei Bao send over? Ge Zhiyong hesitated, and his expression suddenly became awkward. Qin Feng stared at him. You didn't forget to ask about the important matters while indulging in pleasure, did you? How could that be? Ge Zhiyong's tone first rose, and then quickly weakened. I explained my intentions to Zhu Huihui, and she is quite willing to help us. However, they really don't have the manpower available right now. Not even one person? Qin Feng frowned. Or is it that your looks aren't enough of a sacrifice? And you still need to— Stop. Ge Zhiyong quickly interrupted this inappropriate topic. That has nothing to do with this. Lei Bao is currently busy with the selection in the field and can't spare anyone. I think it's better to rely on ourselves rather than seek external help. Let's split into 2 teams for a competition like last time. In the remaining time, let's improve as much as we can and then give our all during the match. Squad leader, how did you come back so laid back? Qin Feng looked at him suspiciously, wondering if he had entered his Zen state. But Ge Zhiyong just laughed awkwardly and explained. It's not that I can't come up with ideas. I just have to stay optimistic, right? Qin Feng rolled his eyes. Falling in love really does make people lose their fighting spirit. He suddenly started to miss the days when Ge Zhiyong was still single. Wait a minute, squad leader, what did you just say about Lei Bao and their recent activities? Busy with selections. I heard from Zhu Huihui that after the selection, there's something called Hell Week, so they will be busy for a while. Why? Qin Feng thought for a moment, then suddenly had a flash of inspiration and smiled as he raised the corner of his mouth. Squad leader, I have a plan. What plan? Qin Feng leaned in close to his ear and whispered, I'm preparing. The more Ge Zhiyong listened, the wider his eyes grew, and his expression became increasingly animated. After hearing Qin Feng's plan, he slapped his thigh and gave Qin Feng a thumbs up. Awesome. I've been in the military for so many years and have seen bold people, but I've never seen anyone as bold as you. Aren't you afraid of getting killed? However, this tactic is indeed a bit brilliant. Qin Feng smiled and said, Squad leader, to be precise, this plan wasn't actually mine. It was thought up by someone from your family. What do you mean? Which person from our family? Your hand-torn basin. The moonlight that can shatter 3 bricks with a single slap. Huh. At least they are the deputy director of the Information Warfare Center. How could such a confidential matter regarding the selection of the Special Operations Team be casually disclosed to outsiders? Upon hearing Qin Feng's words, Ge Zhiyong immediately had an epiphany. He smiled, truly happy. Indeed, the charm of a handsome man still works wonders. At midnight, the soldiers finished their night training and returned to the dormitory, exhausted. The Steel Blade Company, known for its remarkable achievements and long history, has a daily training load much heavier than that of regular grassroots troops. In fact, it even surpasses that of many reconnaissance units. While other units have aircraft and artillery, the Steel Blade Company has only a large knife engraved with faith. Therefore, honing their bodies and achieving physical perfection has become the ultimate pursuit of every soldier in the Steel Blade Company. This is also why this unit can dominate in individual combat against other conventional forces. Moreover, modern warfare often involves localized friction and conflict. Thus, A unit like the Steelblade Company, skilled in the use of cold weapons, can often play a more significant role. This is one of the main reasons why this unit has continued to exist until now. In the still of the night, Qin Feng quietly left the dormitory. He picked up his weapon and went downstairs to stand guard. During his time in the recruit company, new soldiers did not have to stand guard. However, after joining the unit, standing guard became mandatory. Speaking of guard duty, the most arduous work falls on the armed police. They often have shifts of 8, 6, or 4 hours. Standing for 8 to 9 hours at a stretch, and doing so for several consecutive days, can leave a person dazed. With a knife on his back and holding his weapon with both hands, Qin Feng stood motionless at his post. The long night was indeed a bit dull, as standing around doing nothing was quite tedious. He genuinely hoped that some oblivious criminal would come to challenge him. As long as he subdued the person and pressed them to the ground, another third-class merit would be his. Time ticked by, and soon it was time for Qin Feng to be relieved. When the person arriving to take over came, Qin Feng yawned and headed straight to the kitchen. He pulled Chen Sanchi out of bed, asking him to whip up some late-night snacks. Before long, Chen Sanchi came running out of the kitchen with 2 steaming plates of pork and green onion dumplings. Why 2 plates? Because Chen Sanchi, being a glutton, also wanted to have a late-night snack. However, he was afraid of sleeping too soundly and not waking up. So he found Qin Feng as his late-night snack buddy to wake him up after guard duty. In the cafeteria, the two enjoyed dumplings and garlic, and had a bowl of dumpling soup, savoring the original flavor. Ah, so satisfying. They exchanged smiles, clearly enjoying their meal. Just then, a figure suddenly sat down beside Qin Feng. Zhao Pengfei, draped in a coat and holding a cup of tea, joined them. Squad leader, why are you up? Want some? Qin Feng passed the chopsticks over, but Zhao Pengfei waved his hand. You guys eat, I'm not hungry. Hee, then we won't be polite. Watching Qin Feng gobble down dumplings, his mouth greasy, Zhao Pengfei also wore a smile. The dumplings I made taste pretty good, right? Squad leader, if you retire and open a dumpling shop, all the other shops will have to close. Although he knew Qin Feng was just flattering him, the smile on Zhao Pengfei's face remained wide. Everyone likes to be praised and recognized. Even though this logistics officer position was temporary, receiving such compliments made Zhao Pengfei very happy. It showed that his time in logistics wasn't wasted, and his work as an officer had value. By the way, I heard from Chen Sanchi this afternoon that you're still worried about the training. How's it going now? Have you come up with a solution? Qin Feng nodded. I've thought of an idea. We'll start implementing it tomorrow. Zhao Pengfei curiously asked, what kind of training method are you planning? Qin Feng teased, squad leader. I can't tell you just yet, but you'll know by tomorrow. Also, you have to participate in this training. It will greatly help with your recovery and improvement. Hearing this, Zhao Pengfei's eyes sparkled with anticipation. Before long, Qin Feng had polished off a plate of dumplings. He patted his belly and left the cafeteria. Just as he arrived at the dormitory building, he saw Gu Xiong and Gua Haitao waiting downstairs. Did you sneak off to the cafeteria for a little feast? Hee. Dumplings with pork and green onions, made by the squad leader himself, taste better than those sold outside. Seeing Qin Feng looking so content, the two couldn't help but roll their eyes. They had just had instant noodles in the office, while Qin Feng had gone to eat dumplings. This guy was living a much better life than their team leader. It's already 2:30. Isn't it almost time? Yeah, we can start the assembly. Gu Xiong took out his whistle and blew it forcefully. Soon, armed figures rushed out of the hallway. Gu Xiong didn't waste words and pointed to a nearby transport vehicle, urging them to get on quickly. At this moment, Chen Sanchi, carrying a large black pot like a bear, slowly climbed onto one of the vehicles. Unlike the others, their vehicle was loaded with a large amount of living supplies such as rice, flour, and oil. He found a spot to sit down, his round face full of curiosity. Squad leader, where are we going in the middle of the night? Not sure. Zhao Pengfei shook his head. But judging by the situation, it should be for field training. Chen Sanchi lifted a corner of the tarp to look outside, and saw Qin Feng talking to Gu Xiong. However, they were a bit far away, so he couldn't hear clearly, only noticing that both of their smiles seemed a bit eerie, as if they were plotting something sinister. Chapter 186. Are we sure this isn't a death wish? A convoy of military green transport vehicles jolted along the bumpy mountain road. The soldiers in the back wore helmets and held their rifles tightly. The long ride made everyone drowsy. Boom, boom, boom. Just then, a series of explosions suddenly erupted. All vehicles came to a screeching halt, and the soldiers inside were thrown around chaotically due to inertia, looking quite disheveled. It's an enemy attack. Get out of the vehicle. A new recruit inside the truck was the first to react, quickly grabbing his weapon and jumping out. The others followed suit, scrambling to get out. Once outside, they gathered around the truck, weapons drawn, keeping a lookout for any threats. Thick smoke filled the air, mingling with the acrid scent of gunpowder. It resembled a foggy New Year's Eve, as if fireworks had just been set off, with the world shrouded in mist. Several troop transport vehicles behind them had also been forced to stop due to the explosions. perhaps because they were closer to the blast site. The chaos was much more pronounced than in the first vehicle. The soldiers poured out of the truck bed like startled sheep, creating quite a disorderly scene. Just then, the roar of an engine cut through the smoke ahead. An armored military vehicle burst through the haze, quickly coming into view. The door swung open, and a colonel wearing a fisherman's hat stepped out from the passenger seat. The driver, a dark-skinned, expressionless first sergeant, also emerged. It was utter chaos, reminiscent of a bustling market. Kong Lai scanned the scene with a cold smile and remarked, "Is this how you all show up for selection? Each year seems worse than the last." Yuan Feng chuckled lightly but said nothing more, instead directing him to organize the troops. Soon, using his booming voice, Kong Lai managed to gather all the soldiers participating in the selection. After a few simple commands, Yuan Feng stepped forward. His gaze swept across the faces before him and landed on a somewhat nervous private. He placed his hands on the soldier's shoulders, first giving him a pat, then shaking him vigorously. "Don't be so tense, relax a bit. It's just a selection, nothing to worry about. Think of it as a sightseeing trip." Despite Yuan Feng's words, no one could truly relax. The name of the Thunder Leopard Special Operations Brigade was renowned, attracting a large number of outstanding soldiers every year, all eager to join. Those who received an invitation to participate in the selection were the best of the best from their respective units. Standing out among the more than 300 candidates was no easy feat. It could be said they were crossing a narrow bridge with thousands of horses behind them. At that moment, Yuan Feng suddenly walked into the crowd and began calling out names one by one. You two, and you, step forward." The soldiers whose names were called exchanged glances. Although they didn't understand what was happening, they hurriedly moved to the front. Yuan Feng then said expressionlessly, "You 15 were the last ones to get off the vehicle. The Thunder Leopard Special Operations Brigade needs soldiers with quick wits, not dullards. Therefore, you 15 are eliminated. Please step aside. A vehicle will take you back shortly." Without giving them a chance to argue, Kong Lai promptly took them away. Watching the desolate figures leaving, everyone had a look of shock in their eyes. They knew the elimination here would be harsh, but they didn't expect it to be so unreasonable. Just because someone got off the vehicle a bit slowly, they were denied even the chance to participate in the selection. Yuan Feng glanced around. "Do you think our elimination method is unreasonable and inhumane? If so, please raise your hand so I can see." No one moved or spoke, as if they hadn't heard the question. "What a joke. Who would want to stick their neck out?" Yuan Feng said coldly. "Since no one has any objections, let's get straight to the point. There's no need to elaborate on what this place is. In the next 3 days, you will need to embark on an armed dash of 150 kilometers. This should not be too difficult for you, right?" He raised his voice and continued. "The requirement is to penetrate the enemy's main positions and complete a map assignment. Upon reaching the destination, you must hand me a clear and complete map. You can choose to act in groups, but I personally recommend that it's better to go solo. The fewer people there are, the smaller the target, and you will be safer." Hearing this, the expressions of everyone present changed. A private named Zhuang Ping shouted a report and asked loudly, "Sir, may I ask if there will be anyone pursuing us during this process? Will there be ambushes waiting for us at the finish line?" Zhuang Ping's question was what everyone participating in the selection was most eager to know. Yuan Feng walked up to Zhuang Ping and looked him in the eye. "That's an excellent question, but I can't answer it. There are many uncertain factors in war, and you need to judge for yourselves whether the road ahead is dangerous." Yuan Feng's reply was always somewhat ambiguous, but many got the answers they wanted. This 3-day journey would likely not be so smooth. If it were just an armed cross-country of 150 kilometers, it would be too easy. Along the way, there would definitely be ambushes from their adversaries, and it was very likely they would face various pursuits and blockades. Yuan Feng raised his left hand and checked his watch. "It's 9 in the morning now. At the same time 3 days from now, I will be waiting for you at the finish line. I can tell you clearly, this is just a preliminary selection. Only the first 20 to reach the finish line will pass successfully. The rest will return from where they came. Do you understand?" "Yes," everyone shouted loudly, their eyes filled with fighting spirit. Although the chance of passing was less than 1 in 10, it was within everyone's expectations. After all, they had already made ample psychological preparations before coming. Only the true strong could remain and become a part of the special operations team. After Yuan Feng explained the rules, he had Kong distribute supplies to everyone: a bottle of water, a pack of compressed biscuits, and a smoke grenade for survival. Meanwhile, several Special Forces members began checking everyone's backpacks to prevent anyone from secretly hiding additional supplies to cheat during the assessment. All checks have been completed. After putting on the exercise smoke detection device, Yuan Feng retracted his smile and coldly addressed everyone. "Remember, this selection will be more brutal than you can imagine. If you can't handle it, give up early and spare yourselves the suffering. Now, everyone move south. Once you enter that forest, the selection officially begins." Meanwhile, in an open area more than 30 kilometers away, Several troop transport vehicles were parked by the roadside as Qin Feng and his team quickly disembarked. Do you all understand the general situation? The crowd exchanged glances, their faces filled with unease. Zhao Pengfei awkwardly scratched his nose and asked, Qin Feng, are we really going to do this? Is it too out of line? Qin Feng smiled and reassured him, don't worry. The company commander has reported to the battalion commander and received approval. Squad leader Tang Lei chuckled bitterly. We all know that, but what we're really saying is, should we also communicate with the special forces? What if they mistake us for terrorists and end up fighting us? Qin Feng raised his hand to stop him, his expression serious. Squad leader, you might not have understood my point. I brought you here for 2 reasons. First, to let you compete with the elite of other units and improve your combat skills. Second, to challenge you against these special forces and identify your shortcomings. In short, in the next 3 days, everyone you encounter on the battlefield, except for the Steel Knife Company, will be your enemy, and you must take them down. Qin Feng's words sent chills down everyone's spine, causing cold sweat to break out. Engaging with the elite participants was already tough enough. But now they had to face seasoned special forces? Wasn't he that asking for trouble? Chapter 187. Increasing intensity. Yuan's team enters what? A group of unidentified intruders is targeting the teams participating in the selection and has attacked our personnel? How is that possible? This area is a military control zone. No one else should be able to enter. What were they wearing, and what weapons did they have? Looking at the few individuals who had just been chased away, the Special Forces soldier, clutching his bleeding nose, gritted his teeth and said they were dressed in camouflage, with face paint, carrying Type 95 rifles. And it looked like one of them had a knife. Using Type 95, they should be our own people. Who among the units would carry cold weapons for no reason? Kong Lai frowned and instructed them to wait a moment while he immediately reported the situation to the squad leader. Upon hearing this, Yuan Feng showed no signs of surprise. Instead smiling and saying, I didn't expect them to act so quickly. Them? Kong Lai was a bit confused. Squad leader, which unit are you talking about? How could they be at our Lightning Leopard selection assessment? Yuan Feng turned to him and replied, the 33rd Division, Steel Knife Company. This morning, their commander, Lu Chong, personally called me and said he wanted to add some difficulty to our selection, and I agreed. Kong Lai's eyes widened in shock. Steel Knife Company? That sounds familiar. It's the unit that Qin Feng went to. Are they here to help? Yuan Feng shook his head with a smile and said, strictly speaking, they are here to cause trouble. The Steel Blade unit simulates another external force, so they will not only target the selected team members, but also our people. What the hell? Kong Lai jumped up in anger. I was wondering why several groups of people just sent messages saying they were inexplicably attacked. The Steel Blade unit is at most on the level of a regular reconnaissance unit. How dare they? Yuan Feng smiled and spoke calmly. In 20 days, they will have to participate in a major competition. The results of the competition directly affect the allocation of barracks for the rotation and the future development of the troops. If they want to improve in a short time, they need to break the current situation and find a strong opponent. Kong Lai was instantly furious. So they have their sights set on us? Damn it, their commander must be out of his mind to dare to challenge us. Don't they know that playing like this will get them beaten to a pulp? In the previous encounters, our people were always on the upper hand, and it was they who ended up running everywhere. Yuan Feng gave him a meaningful glance, but remained silent. Kong Lai suddenly slapped his forehead, realizing, damn it, this is exactly the effect they want. The harder we beat them, the more they can learn. They're really cunning. On the surface, they are helping us increase the selection difficulty, but in reality, they are training themselves. But I'm puzzled. Our selection time and location are strictly confidential. How did the Steel Blade unit get this information? Yuan Feng did not answer this question and walked straight to an information warfare vehicle nearby. Inside the vehicle, Zhu Huihui was operating her computer but had been paying attention to the situation outside. When she noticed Yuan Feng approaching, her heart raced, and she showed signs of panic. Because this information was leaked by her to Ge Zhiyong, she felt guilty. Captain, no, it wasn't me. What do you mean it wasn't you? Yuan Feng pretended not to understand and said, by the way, has your satellite remote sensing been calibrated? I want to see the personnel distribution on the battlefield. Seeing that he did not suspect her, Zhu Huihui immediately relaxed. Her fingers quickly struck the keyboard, and soon a map appeared on the screen. The scattered dots on the map represented individuals. From the distribution and gathering of these red dots, one could roughly assess the situation on-site and understand the number of eliminated individuals in real time. At this moment, Yuan Feng pointed to 3 red dots on the left side of the screen. Can we get a view of this area? No problem. There happens to be a drone patrolling nearby. Zhu Huihui manipulated the controls, and a small window quickly popped up on the computer screen. After double-clicking to zoom in, the image showed 3 people leaning against a pit, panting heavily. Damn it, who are those lunatics? Who knows who they are? They're like wild dogs. Coming in without even needing guns, just ready to fight. My chest still hurts now, cough cough. Zhuang Ping slightly leaned his head back to take a look, then turned to the other 2 and said, I have a bold guess. I suspect these guys are a third party. A third party? The other two looked surprised, clearly not understanding. Yes, a third party. Zhuang Ping nodded. Just think about it, whether it's the ancient warlords or the modern warlord chaos, or the battlefield in the snowy mountains. In a real battlefield, there can never be just one enemy. So those guys in camouflage carrying big knives are likely the third wave of enemies in the selection competition. Bullshit, third party. A guy named Li Huopao spat angrily. They look more like natives, like some wild men. What era is it? Carrying big knives and making a fuss. Scaring who? That's not how you should say it. The other young man, who looked simple-minded and was named Wang Erniu, retorted. In the past, the big knife team was fierce against the enemies. I read in a book that they even used animal heads to build towers. That was in the past. Li Huopao scoffed. If they have the ability to build another one now, I'll kneel down and give them 1,000 bows. All right, can you two save some energy? Wei Yi barely managed to shake them off. Zhuang Ping said while chewing on something. Whether we bring those old guys or the big knife team over, it won't do us any good. The only thing we can do now is conserve our strength and hurry to the finish line. Although there are only 20 spots, as long as we can cooperate, we should be able to secure 3 spots. The other two exchanged glances and nodded. They had been cooperating all the way. If they had run separately, they would have already been killed by those big knife-wielding guys. What are you eating? Wang Erniu curiously leaned in. Fish mint. It's a bit earthy, but it's edible. I dug it up earlier. Zhuang Ping pulled a handful out of his pocket. The two took it and stuffed it into their mouths without hesitation. A bitter, fishy flavor surged up their noses, almost making them gag. Pa pa pa. Are you sure this thing is edible? Li Huopao spat it out directly. Wang Erniu kept slapping his tongue, looking disgusted. As if trying to beat the awful taste off his tongue. Zhuang Ping glanced at them and rolled his eyes. Fish mint, also known as folded ear root, is a must-have delicacy on the dining tables of every household in our Yunnan Guizhou region. It's even more expensive than pork. You really don't know how to appreciate it. Bang bang bang. Just as he finished speaking, a sudden gunfire rang out. Looking at the flying yellow dust above their heads, the three were startled. Damn, they caught up. Is it the big knife guys or those old guys? Who cares who it is? Hurry up, we can't stay here. Split up. I saw smoke rising to the west earlier. There should be a farmhouse. Let us meet there. And we can also replenish water and food. After Zhuang Ping finished speaking, 3 figures quickly dashed off in 3 different directions. Wu Jin and Lu Xiaowang, who had caught up from behind, stood in place, unsure of which direction to pursue. Soon, another figure burst out from the forest behind them. It was Qin Feng, the initiator of this training. Squad leader, Brother Feng. They ran off in 3 different directions. Which one should we chase? Qin Feng glanced at the uneaten fish mint in the pit, then looked at the general direction they had fled, and waved his hand, saying, no need to chase. I know where they're going. Let us not worry about them for now. There are 2 special forces ahead at 3 o'clock. Let's go after them. Huh. Upon hearing they were going after special forces, the 2 immediately showed some reluctance. The gap between conventional troops and special forces was quite significant. Although Steel Knife Company was strong in individual combat, they would still be at a disadvantage against special forces. However, Qin Feng did not give them a chance to argue. While sniping those elite candidates is satisfying, it won't help us much. If we want to improve and get better, we need to fight against tough opponents. Only by taking on those special forces can we understand the gap and quickly identify our shortcomings. But those guys hit really hard, Lu Xiaowang said, holding his slightly aching ribs, looking quite miserable. Pain is effective. Qin Feng glared at him. Only through hardship can one become great. If you want to grow stronger, you have to endure. With that, he raised his hand and pointed to the left and right sides. Wu Jin and Lu Xiaowang exchanged helpless glances and immediately dashed off in 2 different directions. Meanwhile, Qin Feng looked up at the drone above him, smiled and made a V sign, then plunged into the forest and disappeared from sight. In front of the screen, Yuan Feng watched Qin Feng's last gesture and his provocative expression, involuntarily smiling. On the other hand, Kong Lai beside him was fuming, looking particularly displeased. Damn it. This little brat is really getting cocky. It's fine to bully the weak, but he actually wants to come back and cause us trouble. That's what you call high skills giving one boldness. Old Kong, you keep an eye on this. Upon hearing this, Kong Lai and Zhu Huihui turned their heads in surprise, only to find that squadron leader Yuan Feng was putting on exercise gear. Kong Lai's eyes widened in shock. Squadron leader, you're not thinking of. Yuan Feng inserted a magazine into the base, pulled out a pair of sunglasses from his pocket, and smiled. That's right. I'm planning to up the intensity and have some fun with Qin Feng and the others. Chapter 188. Too insidious, too despicable, too unmartial. Watching Yuan Feng climb into a jeep equipped with a light machine gun, Kong Lai was completely excited. He handed the scene over to Zhu Huihui, quickly armed himself, and joined Yuan Feng in the vehicle. Old Yuan, how can I miss out on taking down newbies? I'll be the machine gunner and ensure to turn those Steel Knife Company guys into a sieve. Alright, hold on tight. Yuan Feng chewed gum and didn't say much. He started the vehicle and stepped on the gas, heading toward the assessment area. Watching the dust rise as the armed jeep gradually drove away, Zhu Huihui, feeling anxious, quickly took out her phone and sent a message. Meanwhile, Gu Xiong was leading a group to chase a few soldiers participating in the assessment. His phone vibrated in his pocket. He took it out to see a short message. Be careful, the head coach is warming up and will personally join the game soon. What's wrong, company commander? Tang Lei, who was beside him, asked curiously upon seeing Gu Xiong's furrowed brows. Gu Xiong stopped in his tracks and turned to the others, saying, the captain of the Lei Bao squad is personally joining the fray. Tang Lei was taken aback for a moment, then smiled wryly. Wow. Commander Qin really has a knack for predicting things. He actually guessed it right. Lu Yong sighed. With us causing such a ruckus, how could the squad leader not join in? The two of them looked at the company commander and asked, so, what should we do now? Should we tone it down a bit? Gu Xiong raised his hand to stop them, then picked up the radio to try and contact Qin Feng. On the other end, Qin Feng was sprinting for his life, darting through the forest like a rabbit. Behind him, two special forces soldiers were chasing him while cursing. Damn it. Stop running if you have the guts. One shouted. You bastard, taking advantage of me while I was busy and making me wet my pants. How shameless. Qin Feng glanced back and shot at them, slightly slowing their pursuit before he ran even faster. In fact, he hadn't expected these two to be so difficult to deal with. Just a moment ago, he had teamed up with Wu Jin and Lu Xiaowang for a sneak attack. However, before they could get close, Lu Xiaowang was the first to be spotted and dealt with. Soon after, Wu Jin was also taken out by the two opponents working together. Seeing the situation turning dire, Qin Feng decided to hide completely. Taking advantage of one of them lowering their guard while relieving themselves behind a tree, he attempted a surprise attack from behind. Unfortunately, the opponent reacted too quickly, and with teammates nearby providing cover, Qin Feng's ambush failed, and he ended up being chased all the way. Damn it. Special forces are really tough to handle. Qin Feng muttered to himself as he flipped over a mound of dirt and dove into the brush on his left to hide. Soon, the two veterans chased after him, one of them clearly having a large wet spot on his pants. Where did he go? Why can't I see him? If I find him, I'll make sure to drag him out and tie him up. Qin Feng shivered in the grass, wondering if that was a bit too cruel. Once the two ran a little further away, he cautiously took the radio from his waist and spoke in a low voice. This is Qin Feng, what's up? Yuan Feng has personally joined the fray. Should we tone it down a bit? Qin Feng peeked out to look around, confirming there were no shadows in sight before he quietly replied. Tone it down? You try to ambush them while I keep chasing those participating in the selection. Are you sure? With just us, can we really ambush them on their turf? Gu Xiong's expression was somewhat unnatural. They have drones, heavy firepower, and even helicopters. If they wanted to, squashing us would be as easy as squashing a bunch of ants. Qin Feng waved his hand dismissively. Don't worry. They won't be so shameless as to deal with us small fries. Besides, isn't our purpose for coming here to spar with the experts? Only by facing the special forces head-on can we identify our shortcomings. Squad leader, just arrange the formations. It doesn't matter if we lose, as long as we gain experience. High-level sparring partners that don't cost money are hard to find. Alright, you make a fair point, so let's give it a try. Gu Xiong covered his forehead and smiled awkwardly. Just be careful yourself. Before he could finish his sentence, Qin Feng suddenly felt a chill on his back. As two shadows appeared beside him, he slowly raised his head, and two seasoned operatives stood on either side, grinning as they looked him over. Finished chatting? One asked. Almost. Qin Feng replied, slightly awkward as he stood up and tucked the walkie-talkie back into his waist. The two men cracked their knuckles ominously, their expressions far from friendly. Particularly the one whose pants were soaked and smelled burnt. His smile was especially cruel. Qin Feng swallowed hard and said, Brothers, before I get beaten up, I have one request. I hope you can agree to it. The two exchanged a glance, looking down on him. Go ahead. Could you not hit my face? Not hit your face? Yes, because I make a living off my looks. Ah. With that, Qin Feng swiftly punched one of them in the face. Then he followed up with a kick right between the other man's legs. Son of ABH. The man holding his face shouted in pain. But before he could retaliate, a combo of punches rained down on him. Before he could respond, he suddenly felt someone trip him from behind. Then, a heavy blow struck his chest, making his heart feel like it had momentarily stopped. Next, the seasoned operative felt his feet leave the ground, and the world spun before his eyes. Qin Feng swung him like a hammer and slammed him into the one who was holding his groin. With a loud crash, the two collided heavily, dazed and seeing stars. By the time they got back on their feet, Qin Feng had already vanished without a trace. This guy is too cunning, too sly, and utterly unprincipled. Should we chase him? Wait, hold on, my head is a bit dizzy, and my lower body still hurts. Let me recover a bit first. This scene was captured entirely by the drone overhead and transmitted back to the tablet in Kong Lai's hands. This kid Qin Feng is really cunning. Every move is underhanded. If he weren't so cunning, I wouldn't have come. Yuan Feng drove at high speed. Glancing at the footage on the tablet, Kong Lai chuckled. Old Yuan, do you think it's a bit unfair for us to go after them with this bird's eye view? Yuan Feng executed an instinctive drift through a narrow turn ahead, replying nonchalantly. It's my territory. I make the rules. Kong laughed and said, then should I call in an armed drone? Yuan Feng also laughed, his smile particularly cruel. One isn't enough. We need at least 3. I want to really put them through their paces. The moon hung low, and the sky quickly darkened. 3 figures stumbled into a village. At this moment, the trio had not eaten for almost a day and were already extremely hungry. Although they had emergency rations, there was only 1 pack. So none of them dared to eat. If they consumed the rations now, they would definitely not last until the last day. Zhuang Ping glanced back at the 2 people beside him, reached a consensus, and the 3 of them walked towards a lit house. Knock, knock, knock. Zhuang Ping had barely knocked twice when a barking dog erupted from inside. The 3 were startled, and just as they thought about running, the door swung open. An elderly man leaned on a cane, looking curiously at the 3 of them outside. Who are you? We're from the military. Zhuang Ping looked into the yard and saw that the large yellow dog had quieted down, which made him breathe a little easier. Are you from the production team? The old man seemed a bit hard of hearing, and his eyesight didn't seem too good either. Grandpa, we are soldiers, not from the production team. We are nearby for training and would like to ask you for a bowl of water. Li DePeo leaned closer to the old man's ear and raised his voice a bit. The old man responded with an "oh," and immediately understood. You have an upset stomach and want to borrow the toilet, right? No problem, come in. The 3 were speechless. Grandpa, we don't want to borrow the toilet. We want to ask if we can have some water and food. The old man leaned in closer. What? You can't hold it anymore and need to go? Then hurry up and come in, or you'll end up soiling your pants. With that, he warmly led the 3 inside, taking them towards the toilet. Zhuang Ping and the others exchanged glances, completely defeated by this hard-of-hearing old man. However, once they entered the yard, they considered themselves temporarily safe. Before long, Qin Feng, following the traces on the road, arrived with his team. Qin Sanchi scanned the surroundings and asked in confusion, they shouldn't come here, right? Hiding in a civilian's home during this election period should be against the rules, right? Zhao Pengfei shook his head. The assessment doesn't specify exact areas, and the bond between the military and civilians is a tradition of our forces. Even hiding in villagers' homes doesn't count as a violation. But there are several households here. How do we find them? Zhao Pengfei was stumped by this question and looked at Qin Feng. Qin Feng, should we not waste time here? There should be others ahead. Let's go chase after them? Just as he finished speaking, a sudden barking came from a nearby household. Immediately after, that household turned off their lights, as if feeling guilty. Qin Feng noticed this and smiled slightly. No need, I've already found out where they are. Follow me. Seeing him heading towards that household, Zhao Pengfei and Qin Sanchi exchanged glances and quickly followed. Meanwhile, inside the house, Zhuang Ping, Li DePeo, and Wang Erniu were on high alert, their backs drenched in sweat. Please, we beg for some free gifts. The child is hungry and wants to eat, someone lamented. Chapter 189. Without seeing Qin Feng, there was always a sense of insecurity. Who are you looking for? The old man opened the door and saw Qin Feng and his companions standing at the entrance, his wrinkled eyes filled with questions. Qin Feng glanced around the yard and spotted a big yellow dog tied up with a rope. He smiled and asked, Sir, we are soldiers training nearby and would like to borrow your restroom. The old man, as usual, had trouble hearing. What? You want this old bone to join the military? At my age, you can't be joking with me. Sir, Zhao Pengfei leaned closer to him and raised his voice slightly. We just want to ask if you've seen anyone like us around. The old man seemed to understand, turned to look towards the house, and then earnestly shook his head. I didn't see anything. Even if I did, they wouldn't let me say. Hearing this, Qin Feng and Zhao Pengfei exchanged glances and both smiled. The old man was quite straightforward. So, Qin Feng made an excuse about borrowing the restroom. The old man had no reason to refuse and opened the door to let them in. But as soon as Qin Feng and the others stepped into the yard, they heard a commotion inside the house, like someone jumping over a wall. Thank you, sir. We suddenly feel much better. Please rest early, Qin Feng said, signaling to Zhao Pengfei and the others to rush out. As they rounded the back, they saw 3 figures sprinting away. It seemed that Zhuang Ping and the others had immediately jumped out of the window after noticing Qin Feng's arrival. This old man is too unreliable. He sold us out in just a few words, but they couldn't blame him. They had to fault the cunning of those people for finding this place. No more talking. If we don't want to be caught, let us run. The 3 escaped while occasionally firing back. However, Qin Feng and Zhao Pengfei's movements were quite agile. As the distance between them closed, Zhuang Ping and the others were giving it their all. Just when the gap shrank to 20 meters, A sudden whistling sound filled the air. Qin Feng looked up and saw something flying towards them, resembling a giant bat. With a whoosh, an object was dropped from the sky. Watch out! Qin Feng shouted, pushing Zhao Pengfei backward. Just 5 or 6 meters in front of them. A cloud of white smoke erupted. An armed drone. Seeing this, Zhao Pengfei was startled. Qin Feng's face looked as if he had just eaten something rotten. He never expected that during a selection, such high technology would be deployed. At that moment, the walkie-talkie at Qin Feng's waist crackled to life. As he pressed to connect, gunfire and explosions could be heard in the background. We can't hold them off. We simply can't hold them. On the other side, Gu Xiong crouched behind the cover, anxiously shouting into the intercom. That bunch from the Lightning Leopard not only has light machines,